I'm Nick Von Walkerbarth, and you're listening to the VonDubCast. If you don't want to listen to me gap in the intro and you want to skip right to the interview, skip about 8 minutes. Before you do, please consider doing one of these couple things that really helps out the show. Following the social medias for the VonDubCast, subscribing, and leaving a review. If you could do those things, that'd be awesome. Also, give me a subscription on the YouTube channel. That'd be great too. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode number 81 of the VonDubCast. Got a really fun, exciting episode for you guys today. It's my friend Megan Chambers. We went to university together. I'm sure you guys have heard, if you've heard any of the other Lister episodes, about the battle that we went to as the Lister Hall Students Association against the university. And Megan was a VP on the LHSA and went through that battle with us, and probably gave her first taste of law. And as you'll see, she eventually went on to law school and worked in law, and now is starting her own practice, which we get into. But I bet you some seeds were planted way back then when we went through all that bullshit with them. So we talked about that, talked about the break-in to the LDL offices, which was my office right beside the LHSA. They stole some computers, and she's the one that actually was right around the guy, and it was close to her room, and it was a very traumatic experience. We talked about that. Talked about her bipolar disorder diagnosis, how that affects her life with work and outside of work. And I just thought it was awesome to personally just to learn more about what bipolar is and to hear it from somebody. And I always feel like things like that, you might hear a after school special or a 5-minute YouTube video, but you don't really get a full sense of what it's like and to hear it from somebody. Or maybe you just, pick up the cliches or something, and it doesn't accurately paint the picture of what it is. So I think it's so admirable that somebody like Megan would come on and be willing to tell everyone listening exactly what it's like to have bipolar disorder, and to show that it doesn't mean you can't do anything. You might have to do things differently, but you can always find a way. And if you work hard, just like Megan's doing, right? Like with that diagnosis, the standard model of law firms wasn't really working for her. So she said, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to start my own. And I love that. If you guys listen to any episodes, you probably know I'm all about that. And I really support people jumping off and trying to create something for themselves. And that's exactly what Megan's doing. And I think that's awesome. So it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. If you have any curiosity about law and law school like I do, I think you'll really enjoy it. And it was nice to catch up and just to kind of get her take on everything and what it's like and what law school is like and what the industry is like. And I just have so much curiosity because I don't know if you guys know this, but growing up, I always wanted to be a lawyer, and that was kind of always in the back of my head. And just because I love to argue, and I always loved money, and I thought, you know what, I can make lots of money and I can argue with people, and that would just be perfect. And looking at it now, I think I'd be a terrible, I think I'd be a really good lawyer. I think I'd be good at anything I do. That's just my own personal demons I fight. I just think I'd be great at everything, but I don't think I would enjoy it. This is more of what I'm going for. And I think there's certain areas, like maybe the Innocence Project and fighting for people. I think I would enjoy that, but just the games that you have to play and the, I don't know, the extracurriculars that are around the industry, more and more as I look into it, really turned me off of it and kind of have me glad that I went on this different path, and I can find different ways to argue with people in more of a fun way. And that's what I'm doing here. So it wasn't too much arguing, I don't think, with me and Megan. We agreed on most things. I mean, this episode was recorded a couple weeks back. I'm just trying to get through my backlog of episodes here to get up to more of the current ones here. So forgive us if anything's changed, if we say anything that was maybe out of date now, a couple weeks later, who knows? Apologies for that. And other than that, I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. Other than that, for me, it's been, I always try and keep these honest with you guys in the intro, and not doing the greatest lately. Just a lot of stress, work and the podcast and life and everything. It's just been a lot, and I'm struggling a bit, and I think not getting much sleep with the dog and sleep deprivation is not really helping too much as well, and all that coming together. And just, I want to be real with you guys. If I'm riding high, I want you guys to ride high with me, but I don't want to lie to you and say I'm something I'm not, kind of the social media thing where you just paint this pretty picture. You know what? I've been struggling quite a bit lately, and it's tough to get up in the mornings and go do what I do, and it's tough to come home and feel what I feel after. And I'm not loving it a ton. I still love the podcast and love everything I do here. But it is a job at the end of the day, and to know a day like this where, not the greatest day, and to come home and know that I if I want to release an episode tomorrow, I have to sit down and do this when I just feel like anything but. I just feel like laying down and going to bed. But that's what this is about, because this is a grind. You have to work hard. And I know that that's what's going to pay off in the long run. And that's kind of what I'm trying to instill in you guys. You know what? There's going to be times where you're not feeling too good, and you just got to keep going. You got to, one foot in front of the other, find the support systems and do those things that are going to bring you back up. But in the meantime, you can't stop for momentum. Momentum is everything, and you got to keep it moving. So that's kind of my message today. Sorry, it's not the most positive one, but I don't want to be dishonest with you guys, like I said. So if you're feeling that way, you're not alone. If you're feeling great, fuck yeah, keep it going. If you're feeling even shittier than I am and it all seems hopeless, I hope you can find whatever that thing is and prioritize yourself. And I hope you turn that around. It's life is hard. Life is really, really, really hard. And that's just a natural thing. But as much as you can take that on yourself and do what you can for yourself and try to avoid what you can't control, that's all you can do. So that's the update on me. And then other than that, if you guys could just do me those favors of following the Instagram page, sharing these posts, sharing it with a friend, just, passing these episodes on to one person. If you just look through and find one episode that you think a friend that maybe enjoys podcasting or listening to podcasts would enjoy, and just let them know, maybe send them a link, that goes a long way. All it takes is one episode to get somebody hooked, and they'll come back for more. And I really appreciate it when people go that extra mile and do that thing for me. So other than that, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all those things, go there. YouTube page really flying, getting caught up. I think we're getting near live. And then once we're live and we're getting episodes up on the YouTube page as they're going up, as I'm releasing them, then we can start going the next step and start the clips channel and these kind of things. And really hoping to get into streaming one of these days. I've just been so overwhelmed and just feel like I'm underwater with it. I haven't really taken that on, but I really want to. And I'm excited for that. Signed up for some jiu-jitsu again and excited for that as well. So lots of excitement too. It's not all doom and gloom. There's some really exciting things on the horizon that I'm looking forward to. And just got to work through the other times, and you'll get there, get to the other side. I know that. I know nothing is permanent but impermanence. So just one foot in front of the other. Other than that, hope you guys enjoy this episode, and I will see you guys in the outro. It's wonderful. Hey, the wonderful world of Zoom.
I remember when Zoom started, they didn't have that.
Oh, really?
And it would just say recording in the top, but it wouldn't announce when it started recording. So I actually really like that feature now.
Yeah, me too.
In terms of consent for recording, it's like, no, you knew. Yeah. You had to click a button.
And
the lawyer side of me loves it.
Yeah, exactly. And just to introduce you as a lawyer, because that's right where I was going. I was curious when everybody jumped into this room of or this world of Zoom. That was probably something I know within our company, that was a lot of questions that came up with sort of the legality of what can you record and not record, and what is the the rules around it. And it's just so funny to watch all these people jump into this whole new world of technology and have to see all the legality around it. And just to introduce the fans a little bit, I've already given you a description in the intro, but Megan, we met in Lister, in Kelsey Tower, and we both really enjoyed the Lister environment and both took on roles within the community, you with the LHSA, me with the LDL. And I've had people on like Sam Wright and T that we've talked about that experience and what it was. And it ended up, going to court. And if anybody wants to go listen to Sam's episode, but it was very much revolving around fairness and what is right and justice and not real court, because we never really, unfortunately, got to go there. We kind of had to keep it within the UofA ecosystem. But I'm curious, how much did that drive you towards your career now and being a lawyer and law school and the fire that it takes just to get through the law school part of it, not to mention the career afterwards?
Yeah, for sure. I was mentioning this a little bit before that it definitely had an impact on me going into law.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, I guess it would have been my third and fourth year of undergrad. I did my undergrad in 5 years because I did extracurriculars. I was on the varsity curling team, those sorts of things. I didn't want to exhaust myself.
Which is very easy to do.
yeah, I wanted to enjoy myself. I mean, that's not to say that I didn't end up getting burnt out at U of A anyways. That's a whole nother subject. If you want to cover it later, we totally can. I have lots to say about the U of A. Anyways, but yeah, so that was really third and fourth year. And in my fifth year, when I was finishing my program, was when I actually wrote the LSAT, which is the entry exam into law school that you have. Well, most programs require you to have the LSAT.
Right.
So I pretty much kind of was thinking that I was going to go into law kind of in third year-ish. I'd had inklings before. I took like law classes in high school.
Yeah, I'm curious how far back, because usually things like that have a route that goes really far back. Was there any times as a kid, was that always kind of in the cards, or did it just become more apparent later on?
It's kind of funny. I'm the type of person that I'm so interested in things where I get to learn that I was like that. I'd be in like the shower and be like, I think I want to become a zookeeper. That might sound like fun. So I'd then spend the day researching being a zookeeper, and be like, okay, maybe that's not the career I want to do. For a long time, I wanted to be a forensic scientist, help with crime scene investigations.
Wow. Well, similar.
Yeah. So like CSI kind of stuff. I was really obsessed with CSI for a little bit. Criminal Minds.
Who is it?
Yeah. Right. Those are great shows. Especially for anybody who has like any sort of inkling and interest in law. Yeah. I remember in junior high, I think junior high was where I kind of started to really see that maybe law was a thing. I was always told as a kid, you'd be a great lawyer because that's argumentative, right? That's such a critique that we give kids when they don't listen to our authority. You'd make such a good lawyer. It's like such a dig. It's like, no, it's great. They're critical thinking at this age. I love it.
And it's kind of a dig, but I mean, also to the right kid, because I got that a lot too, and I loved it every time. And I told you this off air, like that was always my thing all the way up through high school. Like deep down, that was always my line. Oh, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a lawyer. And then when I got to school and realized I had to get an undergrad first, and what the school I've got my thoughts on U of A. Anybody that's listened to more than one episode probably knows. I realized pretty quick that probably wasn't in the cards, but it's definitely it's a dig to some people and that motivation, that fire to others, right? It just depends on the way you take it.
Yeah. And I mean, it obviously also depends on like the context in which it's being said too.
100%.
I can remember getting a lot of them being like, you'd make such a good lawyer as like a nasty thing. And I'd be like, what's wrong with being a lawyer?
Exactly.
But yeah, so I was always that kind of kid. And then in junior high, I think it was around junior high, my dad ran his own business. And he actually had a dispute with a client because he was a grain broker, and there was like an issue between the buyer and the seller. So he ended up getting dragged into that and having to deal with lawyers in the court and all that kind of stuff. And I was too young to like go to court with him and all that kind of stuff. But I can remember thinking like, this really sucks for him. Like, it's not his fault that this person didn't pay this person. Why is he getting dragged into this? And then kind of, I think that's where it kind of started. I was always also the type of kid that, and when I say kid, I mean up to like high school kind of thing, was when I kind of really started to kind of make more like concrete decisions about my career path. I would always like, when I got my first cell phone, the person that was like setting up our phone was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm reading the contract. They're like, just sign it. And I'm like, I'm not signing anything before reading it. They're like, what are you talking about? You're 12, like, or like 13 or however old I was when I got my first cell phone. And I was like, so like, I've always read all the contracts. I get home, I read the terms and conditions.
Wow.
It's like, I know I'm such a weirdo. I've always been
stronger than
I'm such a fast reader too, that I think that's part of it. And I think that also really helps me now because I've been reading contracts for years. So then I kind of took a little bit of a weird leap in high school where I actually got really into sports med. I loved it. I won trainer of the year for our high school and for the city of Calgary. I spent over 500 volunteer hours in my last year of grade 12 working with the teams. I have 4 city golds, 3 city silvers and 1 city bronze between the teams that I worked with.
Yeah.
And so I went to UofA for kinesiology, actually.
Mm.
And that was something that everybody was like, I didn't think you were going to go into kinesiology. Like, that's odd.
Yeah.
I
Let's
remember
arguing in that.
Yeah, I remember that the like guidance counselor at my high school being like, you want to go into phys ed, you're wasting your talent.
Wow.
You should be like a rocket scientist or something else. I remember thinking that was really rude, because I really loved helping people. And that's always been my motivation that's why I loved it so much, was because I was always on the sidelines and being like, I want to go out and help that person that's injured. I want to be out there. I want to be supporting them.
Right.
And as a sports trainer, I was able to do that. So I think that to me kind of just grabbed my attention as something very tangible that I was doing that I really loved. Because the base behind why I love what I'm doing is because I'm helping people.
Yeah.
So that really helped me figure that out. I did my first year of kinesiology, got really close with some friends in the program. And unfortunately, one of my friends passed due to suicide in March of first year.
Wow.
One of my best classmates. So I saw him every day. He was in like 90% of my classes, sat beside me, those sorts of things.
So tough.
Yeah. And that's hard in any situation.
Yeah.
And so I remember the end of first year, just trying to finish out my classes was hard enough as was.
I bet.
To just sit there and be like, he's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck, right?
Did you find having a community around you on your floor and enlisted, did that help you through it, or was it just such a lonely time that kind of
No, it definitely helped me through it. I was really lucky. Scott Veronelli. He was on my floor in first year and second year. So like Scott and I have known each other since first year university. But he was also in phys ed at the time and in all the same classes. So literally the moment that I found out, I ran to Scott's room, woke him up by pounding on his door and said, I'm sorry, but you need to know this.
Yeah.
And I remember we just sat, he's probably gonna hate the story, but we sat on his bed. He was still in his boxers and just like hugged and cried for like 2 hours. And Scott was a rock for me. And
for so many people.
Yeah. During that time, Scott was really a big rock for me. He's always been there whenever I've needed to talk about Caleb, my friend who passed. And it's just been, I don't think that I would have made it through university, or on a much more honest note, I don't think I would still be alive if it wasn't for Lister and the LHSA and the community around me. That's a little hard for some people to hear, but
I think anyone that's been there will understand that though.
Yeah. So I had some pretty rocky experiences throughout university, and we can get into them if you want.
It's up to you.
I know we're getting like kind of sidetracked, but
that's all we do on this podcast.
That's all we do, right? That's good. The one that really sticks with me is in first year. A lot of my really transformational experiences that have changed me, like I was on this path and then now I'm like, or like whatever way you want to say my path went.
Diverging.
It really, like, Lister was really the conduit for a lot of that.
Right.
Because in like the first couple of weeks that I was in Lister, so I was underage for the first semester. I'm a young baby. I'm born in December. So my 18th birthday in Alberta was actually the day after my last exam, and the day that all the first year engineers had their last exam the day after.
Wow.
So nobody came to celebrate because my floor was full of first year engineers preparing for their Saturday morning exams. That's but side note. But anyway, so I was going to my first like party in residence, and I didn't like know anybody really. Like it was like, I think it was still September, so like we hadn't been in for very long. I think it was the first time I'd left Kelsey Tower, and some of the girls from the curling team lived in Henday. So there was a party on main Henday. And so I went with one of my other friends from the curling team. And we went and we got onto the floor and we were like super excited. It was dark. There was like flashing lights. We're like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I think I'd had like maybe like a shot of sourpuss because I was such a lightweight and like just couldn't handle alcohol. I was underage. So I was like not.
That's the perfect drink for it.
Yeah. I was not wanting to experiment. Like I didn't drink in high school. I was a goody. Still really, most people would probably refer to me as a goody because I'm a lawyer. But I mean,
I've seen you tear it up on a dance floor or two in between that time and now. There's been at least a few dance floors. I have my fun moments. Yeah. There you go.
But so we got onto the floor and like it's dark. There's a lot of lights, and I see my best friend from the curling team on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
And so, like any normal person, I just book it to her. And then all of a sudden, I'm on the floor, and I go, "What? My head is killing me." What had happened is, have you heard the story of the 7 Henday unicorn?
7 Henday unicorn.
So I couldn't remember what year did you start at UofA?
What year?
Yeah, 2012.
2012, 2013. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it would have been destroyed by the time that you got there. I don't know if
because I lived on 7 Henday in my second year.
Oh yeah. So
I feel like I'll probably once you start telling us, I'll probably remember it. But yeah,
so
it might have not made it to my time.
7 Henday used to, I believe it was 7. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 7. Used to have a horse-sized metal sculpture that was a unicorn.
Nice.
It was made for a tower competition.
Yeah.
Anyways, there was obviously some resident services concerns about them storing a large metal unicorn.
A giant unicorn, yeah.
Made out of metal. That seems dangerous, right? And so they had like a deal that they had to have it locked away and all that kind of stuff. And anyways, the night of this party, this is what I've pieced together afterwards. So it may not be entirely true. I don't know. It's somewhat hearsay. But
bits and pieces. There you go.
Bits and pieces. I mean,
typical Lister story.
Yeah. But anyways, the people from Main and Dungeon Henday, or it might have been from 3 Henday, went up to 7 Henday, broke into the storage room, stole the horse, and brought it down to Main Henday.
Typical. That was my guess.
Yeah. So that being said, this thing is on wheels because how else do you move a horse-sized metal object?
Yeah.
Well, their bright idea was to turn off the lights and turn it into a rodeo bull. So people were on it, people were spinning it, and seeing how long people could stay on it for.
Oh my God. And you walked right into that?
I didn't walk right into it. My friend that ran towards me, it hit her in the back of the head. Her head hit my head. And then it bounced over me and hit my friend behind me.
Oh my God. This is carnage.
Yeah. And fractured her zygomatic arch.
No.
Yeah. So she, like, I remember after it happened, like the lights all went on and everybody was like, go back to your floors. Like, oh my God, people are injured. Call the RCs, like all that kind of stuff. Right. And walking back to the, cause she lived on 2 Kelsey.
Yeah.
She was like, I think my jaw is broken. And I'm like, oh my God,
no
like,
way.
What happened?
Yeah.
Because like, I'm instantly concussed.
Yeah.
Like that is a hard hit from someone's head to my head. My other friend is concussed. Needless to say, the coach of the curling team was not happy.
I bet not.
3 varsity athletes got
in a unicorn accident.
In a unicorn accident in residence.
Explain that one, hey?
And not just that, it was right before fitness testing.
Oh no.
So that was not fun. Coach was not happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so because I had that one shot of sourpuss, and I think this is where my issues with resident services started. They did not take my issues seriously because I was underage. And so when everything happened, I was truthful and admitted I'd had a shot of sourpuss.
Yeah.
I almost got put on sober contract.
Yeah. That
to me was like, what do you mean I'm almost getting put on sober contract for something that had nothing to do with my alcohol consumption?
Yeah.
When people stole stuff, hurt 3 people, and like ran away.
And
I was like, I feel like that was a gross result. But that being said, I understand they have policies and blah, 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 blah. But
right.
I think there also should sometimes be a little lenience in certain things.
And the thing that I struggle with is you can see after being involved in it, you see exactly what creates that atmosphere. And you see all the incentives that creates that position. Now you have this system that they know is not fair, that they don't take anything into account. They don't listen to the people. They don't actually try and help. So now it creates this environment where nobody wants to talk to them. It's like, you know, the 5-0 in Lister, the res services, because they were never reasonable and they never wanted to work with you and they never had connections with the students. So everyone hated them and wanted to push them away. So in a situation like that, all the people that maybe are in the wrong, maybe stole something, they know, you know, ixnay, hide everything, get away. Right.
Yeah,
but then
I don't even think there was a single eviction from that. The unicorn
nor should there have been in my opinion, right? Like kids having fun and that.
But I mean, like,
but
for
no,
some
nobody
other
even getting in
things,
trouble or anything.
Yeah. For some other things that were much less than that, there were evictions.
Oh, for sure.
So
we've told stories of that on this podcast too, of how ridiculous they are.
So that being said, like, I mean, I still got along with resident services, I'd say probably until third year.
Yeah.
I still, even after third year, got along with them. Like, I have never, like, you know me, I'm not the type of person that like invites conflict that's unnecessary. Like, if I think something's wrong, I'm going to bring it up. Yeah. And yeah, going back to the kind of the lawyer story here a little bit is, so I actually went into business economics and law and get my Bachelor of Commerce after I took a year to just take like courses away from kinesiology because I kind of needed the emotional break.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you think that was a big, like, do you think going through that, did that sour the kinesiology dream or kind of what you're doing? Is that not that created you into a different path, but did that just, even with the space, do you think that was a major moment and kind of it was never the same after that, like to go back to it?
Yeah, even now, like, I didn't like taking exams in the Butterdome. I didn't like being in the phys ed building. Yeah. Like, every year when the like anniversary pops up on my timeline, because it does, and I obviously still want to remember my friend. Like, I have a tattoo that reminds me of him and that sort of stuff. So, like, that being said, that I do think it was a catalyst for change, but I don't think it was necessarily a path that wasn't the right one.
Right. Exactly.
Because
I know what you're saying.
I think when I went into kinesiology, my goal is to help people. And now my goal is still to help people.
Just on a different scale. Just
on a different way. Right. Yeah. So, because I probably would have become a physiotherapist throughout the kinesiology thing. It's very hard to become a trainer at like a professional sports level as a female. Most leagues are male. You're a female. The locker room, whatever. So I just really wasn't prepared to like fight for that when I was already going to have to fight just to get through my degree.
Right.
And so I, from there, took like a general year, some courses that I was kind of interested in. And one of them was econ. And for some odd reason, everybody was like, you're a kines kid. Why do you like econ? Well, I don't actually think I was in kinesiology because like science and stuff was my passion. I was in it to help people. Like the classes I did the worst in were like actually the science, like very technical ones. Yeah. That being said, I didn't struggle in undergrad, but the ones I did the worst in were those.
I hear you.
But so I kind of knew that like, okay, well, econ's interesting. How can I help people with econ? And then I had to take, to take stats, and then I had to take, I can't remember what the other prereqs were that I had to take. Those are the two that popped out. But so I applied for business. I also applied to switch into econ if business didn't work out. Right. To get a higher GPA to get into business eventually.
And was that my first year? That would have been your second year, and then you were applying for business after that second year?
Yes.
So I think me and you would have both been in business prereqs. Excuse me, at the same time in my first year, your second year, both going into business the next year.
No, I started in 2010. I'm 2
years older. Then I'm wrong. Yeah. I got you. Yeah. So, I'll let you start. I'm getting ahead of the story. I'm sure you'll get there. I'll find out.
So I applied. I got accepted into econ first because obviously Faculty of Arts accepts you a little bit quicker than the Faculty of Business, for just sheer volume of applications and how many people they can accept. And so I transferred into econ for 3 weeks until I got my acceptance into business. Then I transferred into business with a major of business economics and law, because I really liked economics and I kind of knew I liked law because of what I've told you before. Like it just seemed natural. And then so my first business law class blew my brain away. Like I was so in love with business law. It just obviously became my major. I took every business law class I could. It like, I can't remember the name of the professor now, because
I know exactly who you're talking about, because everybody knows him.
I think his last name's Bones.
That sounds right. I don't think I had him. I think I had the opposite guy, and everyone said to me like, "Oh no, you didn't get this guy," and he was just the guru.
Yeah, and so his textbook was actually a law textbook, which was like, law textbooks are quite a bit more different than undergrad textbooks. There's not very many pictures. The text is a lot smaller, and it's a lot of case law. So you're literally reading paragraph by paragraph of decisions from judges, which can be onerous for some people. For me, I quite enjoyed it. He taught it very much like a law school class, where the book was all just case law. He'd assign you certain readings and you'd make case briefs about the cases. And that's literally what I ended up doing in law school. So I was like, I love his class. I did really well in it. I think there's an A attached to it. I don't remember what letter, but that's a good grade in my mind. Hey, anything with an A attached to it, I'm more than happy.
Didn't have many of those in my career, but hey, I didn't fail a course. That's my hang in my head. May not have been many A's, but I never failed one. I'll take that.
So I will go ahead and tell you that my opinion on grades drastically changed when I went to law school. The phrase "C's get degrees" is a very common motto in law school.
Which is funny, because growing up, like if I brought home a C in high school, I would get my ass beat. Right? Like it was so funny to go through like this high school where, A's are the only acceptable thing. Like if you don't have at least like 80, 85, you're in trouble. And to go through and the amount of work you had to put in to get to that. And then you go to university and the amount of work you have to put in just to get a C is vastly different. But also at the start,
I like to explain it to people as is, this is the range, right, of people's school intelligence. Because I don't like to say how smart people, because like school is a really shitty way, pardon my French, of explaining like how people actually are going to do in the real world. It's very structured to not a lot of people. So it's kind of like this in high school. Everybody goes to high school or is supposed to, like, I mean, some people drop out before, but in high school, the range is like this, right? You have,
and just for the people listening, like, you got your hands one above.
Oh, yeah. So I have a really large range of hands. I'll explain this. This is actually really good practice, because I am supposed to be doing this in front of a court anyway.
Hey, there you go.
Don't have video in court. So, so I have a really large range of hands here. That's like the general population of high school. At the bottom here, we have people who maybe aren't going to make it through the standard system. Their teachers may have to help them just to get to the like 51% to get past that course. Like they might need a little bit of cushioning to get there. And then you have the people at the very top, which are like the valedictorians and the people who are only like A's all the time. They're 90
one question wrong, it's an issue.
Like they go home and they cry when they got a 97 kind of thing. So you have this large range, right? And that's high school. Well, not everybody from high school goes to university. So my range goes from quite large to, we move the bottom hand up to half,
right?
We'll say. So only say half of people go to university. I mean, that's not an exact number, but
right. I know
for the purpose. Yeah. So there's now half the amount of people. Well, the grading range is still the same. You're still, now you were at like 75, 80 in high school. That's great. You got into university. It's awesome. but you just got into university by their standards, right?
Right.
So now you're the bottom of the pile.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, oh crap, I have to work so much harder to get the same result because the grades have shifted up.
Yeah.
Right. And then the people at the top are still, they're not really feeling the struggle. They always did well.
Mm-hmm.
The school system's still working for them. They're still at the top of the curve because that's just where they are in relation to everybody.
Yeah.
So then now we get into graduate school or a professional degree, like
Mm-hmm.
law school, something where you need to have a certain grade point average to get in.
Right.
Well, now the lower hand shrinks even more.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're
it's
at
a tiny subset.
Yeah. So now we're at like a 10th of the people that were in high school,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. Right. So, but to get in there, that range, so the small little like inch range here is only a 10th of what the big range was. Well,
Mm-hmm.
all of these people in high school were getting A's. They're used to it. They're
Mm-hmm.
so used to it. If they got a C, they would have probably thought about jumping off a bridge, that kind of level.
Right.
Well, some of these people that are at the bottom of the law school bracket would still have been getting A's in high school, would have still been getting A's in university,
Mm-hmm.
but now they're on a curve. Not all law school classes are curved. There's like a grading distribution that essentially results in a curve, but they don't they tend to only adjust it up because they actually like to get you through law school.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Yeah. So within this, yeah, obviously there's still the people that are getting A's in classes. But somebody who's getting A's before might only be getting C's or D's now.
Right.
And so that doesn't mean that you're not competent, qualified, all of those sorts of things.
Exactly.
It just means that you're comparing yourself to something that academically, I'm using air quotes, says that you're higher, right?
Yeah.
So some people, law school is a bit of an adjustment, same as undergrad is a bit of an adjustment.
For sure.
Where you go, holy cow, I've never gotten a C before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
How am I okay with this? Well, you kind of got to look at it like you're still getting a C in a higher level than you were getting before, right?
Right.
So when I got into law school, the first semester was kind of like, oh my God, I'm so freaked out. I don't have an A. Like I'm barely skimming by. We can get more into law school in a bit. Yeah, so we got into A's. The saying is A's are excellent professors. They're the ones who are great at just going for it and teaching the law and like really interpreting it and like critically changing the law, right? So then B's make good judges because they're critical thinkers. They are not like so ingrained, like they're still good, right? But they're not. Yeah. And then C's are great lawyers.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. It's fascinating.
So yeah, I mean, obviously if you get an A, you're still going to be a great lawyer. Like, it's just the A's tend to filter out to be professors eventually. The B's tend to filter out to be judges eventually, and the C's tend to filter out to be lawyers eventually.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that just tends to be, but I mean, that being said, it's kind of like anything. Once you get into it a certain amount, your grades don't matter anymore. It's all about your experience. So
for sure.
But we all want to go into it to be a lawyer at first, right? So we kind of go, oh, C's get degrees. Awesome. I'm happy. I'm going to be a lawyer if I get through this. So that's really, in high school, if I'd gotten a C, I would have been the type of person to want to jump off a bridge.
For sure.
So,
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So like now, if I was in school again, getting a C in law school, I was like, oh, thank God I passed. I don't have to do that again.
Yeah. That's exactly how I felt. And I found for me, it was the courses that I was interested in and I enjoyed. I knew I'd pass those, but then there would always be one or two courses a semester that I just absolutely couldn't stand the professor, couldn't stand the coursework, couldn't stand any of it. And I would never go. And those would be the ones where it was on the teeter edge of, am I going to pass this or not pass this? And I put in so much effort right at the last minute to kind of push it over that edge. And just to add another couple things to what you said, I really enjoyed what you said in that breakdown, but I just maybe want to add one or two things to it.
Yeah,
I think kind of how you're breaking it down with the largest subset, the high school. I think every time you take those steps and it changes the amount of people, I think also it changes the requirements side, because high school, a lot of it, it's a mixture where a lot of it is on hard work. At any point in any structure, I think hard work is that is just innately with me. I think hard work goes a lot of the way into it. But for someone like myself, I didn't work hard at all.
Definitely, there is people who get A's because they just fit the system. There's people who get A's because they put in the work to get A's.
100%. And I was not one of those people that was putting in the work to get A's. I was just, lucky enough that I had amazing parents that, taught me to read at a crazy rate when I was really young, and I enjoyed reading, and I picked up, fantasy books. And I really feel like that is a huge reason why I had the success I did in high school. But then when you go to university, it still has there's that inherent, people have differences, human biology, people have different brains. Some are smarter than others. That's just natural. But then there's this level where now that hard work gets amped up to it's almost like, hard work is always like three out of the possible, whatever it is. No, that was a bad analogy. Smartness is always one. Anyway, that is just going down a bad path that I'm just going to confuse people.
There's always a little bit of room for hard work to improve what you naturally have.
Right. And I think the importance of that ramps up. Whereas now in university, if you want to get those A's, there's probably those people that are going to work hard for those A's. Or and I equate this, maybe if you're trying to get into business, like I was in first year, I was having to throw a lot more effort on top of my natural abilities to make sure that I was getting those marks. Not that I was passing the classes. I could have just phoned it in like I did in the rest of it, but I had to achieve a certain amount. So I had to add on that hard work. And I think that's where it goes, where it's not to say that if you don't have that natural ability and you just fall out of those subsets, you can force yourself up brackets to go along and push yourself along the way. That's 100%. What is so interesting about, you see these people come out on the other side. And I think that is important to have that in these systems, because those are important lawyers too. You need those lawyers, right? And I'm just using lawyers because this is what we're talking about. I think for sure, in all professions.
And I have thoughts on this.
For sure, because I think you need those people that just, shit doesn't come easy to them. They got to grind, they got to work, and they got to pull themselves in. And they just barely got into university, and then they just barely got into business. Then they barely got into law school, and they got through it. But that person has seen so much hardship, and the people that just cruise through and have no other outlook and are so obsessed with this high achieving that they've lost a lot of touch with a huge part of the population that doesn't see the same thing, because that is a very, that is a very small subset of the population, and that mindset and what you do, that elite level. And we need that too. That's great. But I think it's almost imperative to these systems to allow that jumping of the bounds to come with you, even if that is the standard of how it goes. And then I think just one other thing I want to say on it was, not only is it amazing, or not amazing, but interesting to see the marketing curriculum change when you get to university, of not only like I got a C in high school, that'd be terrible, but a C in university is different. But now also when you're grading curve, I remember being in first year business, and there was in first semester you do what are the two? It's accounting is one and finance is the other. The first year finance, first year accounting courses, really difficult. And they're to weed people out, and they're to see who can really cut it, who can't. They make one really hard course. And it's also to teach, if you want to go into finance or go into accounting, you have to learn what it's about, and they make it difficult on purpose. And I can't remember the first one. I think it was
accounting and finance are not easy. You need to know your stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was the accounting. No, it was finance. Finance was first semester, and there's a whole bunch of us kids in list talking about it. And we go to this first midterm, and it is the hardest test I've ever taken. Right. And it shook me a little bit. Holy fuck. Like, there's no way I did good on that one, which is not a feeling I was accustomed to, even, with all this stuff changing up. And then we got our marks back, and people I think I got like a 60, which is really bad. Like, but I was like, holy fuck. But that was like a B, maybe even a B plus. And then, so I remember one of my good friends bawling because she got 45. Like, and again, it's similar to me, never been below 60 or like absolutely.
I had
bawling.
A chemistry test where the average was 24.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So she goes crying to the professor. I'm with her, and she's like, "Oh my God, I got 45." She's like, "Hey, that's like a C plus, B minus. Like, you're fine. Like that. I know this seems the word." But then she did better on the next midterm in the final, and ended up passing the course fine. But she was like, do I need to drop out? Do I need to like drop this class? Do I need to, take it again next semester? And just wrapping your head around that in the first little while is just half the battle, just understanding this new training, because it's so different and such a odd ecosystem from what you're taught, because coming up through school, there's none of that. And there's no adversity. They never throw any of that at you. And I wonder if they should, find a couple courses in high school just to kick people's ass where maybe it doesn't affect your total grade point average. Just have this separate testing over here to just like show you a little bit of adversity. But I found that as a really interesting moment in my university career. Oh, this is very different. Like this is noticeable. And this is, I can't play the game the same way I was. This is new. And I got to figure out the best way to game this system. Cause this is particular. You don't need to be the best in the class. You just need to beat a certain amount of people. And you don't need 80 in each course. You just need to be within the group. And it taught me to keep a lot more eye on how everybody else is doing, asking more questions. Are you really struggling with this stuff? Like, is this just really hard for me, or is this just really hard material? Because those are two different things that are going to have you two different results. It was fascinating for me to go through that. Yeah.
And I think that on that topic directly, to me, it's really interesting to see as well, because I was somebody who just skated through high school. Like
same here. Yeah.
I had no problem with it. To a large part, I skated through the academic side of undergrad. Undergrad was ridiculously tough at UofA. I was thinking about it this morning, whether hindsight 2020, I would still go back to the UofA and redo my degree. I would. I don't think I'd go back to the curling team, but I think that where I excelled the most was where Lister really helped save my life. And school was kind of secondary, but because of all the things that were going on in the background. So I was lucky in the way that I had enough, like I fit the system well enough. We'll say that. I fit the system well enough that no matter what, as long as I had the time to like get the material, I was going to do well in tests. I didn't have test anxiety. I didn't like need extra time in undergrad or anything like that. So I was like, I remember sitting in the Butterdome one time and a girl breaking down in tears beside me.
Everybody's seen that went to university.
Yeah. And she was in a different class
because they separate them. They put you're in this class, you're in this class.
Them. So I was doing a first year business class, that really simple one that like the final exam is only like 2 hours, but everybody hands it in by an hour.
Yeah, I think I know which one.
You remember which one I'm talking about? Like it's a guaranteed pass business.
It's like intro to business, like dynamics or something like that.
Yeah.
I know it. Drinking course.
Yeah. So I finished in 24 minutes, reading through it 3 times.
Yeah.
And so she's already bawling 24 minutes in, and I'm sitting here going, I'm not in the same class. I'm done. I don't really want to wait. But if I stand up right now, she's going to fucking lose it.
Yeah, I better just sit here for a couple minutes here.
So I actually stayed for 45 minutes in total.
Well golf clap.
Thanks. I just looked over my answers, used as like meditation time.
Good call.
But yeah, for me, it was like, whatever. Like it was just a really simple, I'm a fast reader. It was all multiple choice.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a hard test, but
it's so funny that you talk about going back over it, because I was very much the same way. Like I talk about, like my parents had cue cards in my room from the time I was like 2 years old, all over my walls, and they would put sentences together. So I was reading from a super young age. So I could read really fast, and I would always finish tests really quickly. And always even back in high school, this is the thing. The majority of the questions I get wrong wasn't because I didn't know it. It's because I read too fast and I got too ahead of myself, and it was a trick question or something. So I would have so much benefit from going back, and I would always have the time to do it. And I never did it in like any course. I don't think I've ever gone back through a test and double checked my answers, even though that is probably the number one thing that would have brought my marks up like a full letter grade at each course. Because it was just such a.
So other than that course, I don't know if I did it a whole lot.
Yeah. You had a good reason to that time.
Yeah, that reason I had that one I had a good reason to, because when you finish an exam in like 14 minutes, you're like, I did something wrong. It's scheduled for 2 hours. Well, that's the shortest amount of time they could schedule it for with that amount of people in the Butterdome.
I want to tell you a story about the next semester, the accounting first midterm, and a person that me and you both know. And she's sitting beside me. We're doing this test, and I'm like, holy shit, like struggling, like getting through it. And they finished in like under an hour. And this is like a long test. I'm like, holy shit, like how did they finish it? Whatever, get through, struggle. I didn't even finish, and I left. And she goes, I had no fucking idea. I just, wrote down a couple things and left because I knew what I was going to do. And I was like, oh my God, that makes me feel so good. I was just freaking out in my head because she just did it to me. I'm like, how is she done already? And I'm sure she'd be fine if I said her name, but just in case I won't say it, but I'll tell you after who it was.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. But yeah, no, that's personally why I don't like the way the exams happen, is because there's so much extra mental stress when you don't need the extra mental stress of like an exam. But yeah, so with that, like, I think that also in law school, it was why it was like so steep of a learning curve, was because going back to the thing where you were mentioning, there is people that work their way up into like the higher educational bracket, right? That shouldn't be there, air quotes, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that I will say that I like, that's what the system says, but I don't necessarily agree that the system is right.
I hear you.
So I completely agree with your statement earlier that we do need people in the legal profession who have struggled, who have seen harder things, all of those sorts of things. Like, we do need diversity in the legal profession. Still, by and large, it is old white males. It is very dominated by old white males. We're starting to see more diversity in hires. We're starting to see more diversity in appointments to the bench. But at law school, you still see a lot of white males, which is, there's nothing wrong with white males being lawyers. But when a system is supposed to support everybody, and the people that are making that system and enforcing that system don't have any relation to the people that it's affecting, then you have issues, right? So that's where I actually see people who have had some struggle, had some adversity. It was a little bit harder for them to get into law school, or a lot harder for them to get into law school. Those are some of the best lawyers. Like, the people, and I think that's part of the reason why it subsets into that A, B, C kind of thing, is because in law school, if you're getting C's, you probably had to work for them still, because like, it's a hard program, right?
For sure. Just passing, you're working for it, and when you get to that level.
Yeah. So, I mean, no matter what you're doing, that's kind of why law school, when you get into law school, they just kind of want to make sure you get through. You've already done enough work to show that you're dedicated. You're like organized somewhat, like you have the base skills of like learning, right? Quote unquote. They just want to make sure that you get the knowledge that you need to get through, because they know you have the dedication. But so, I forget where I'm going with that.
Well, I can maybe jump in with one little thing, and maybe something that I'm curious your take on, because the way I look at it is with the diversity, and I agree that there's certain things. Law is a perfect example. And I think we could, again, use this for many different industries and stuff like that. Diversity is important. But I think when it's something like law specifically, where it is a very high echelon, high skill cap, like tip of the spear kind of thing. Like if you're chasing being a lawyer, you are undertaking a very hard task. And
in our society, lawyers are viewed as like a prestigious role.
And
because of the work that you have to do to get there.
For sure. So, as it should be. And I think we're lacking that in some of these other things like teaching, which I feel like
I agree.
Very much similar. But now you take it, and because of just those factors of what it is, right? There's nothing wrong with any of those things in itself. That's just how the system operates. But now what I worry about more than it just being straight white males there is the diversity of who those people are, because I feel like if it's a straight white male, gay, brown, female, whatever it is at that point, to get to that point, you have to have certain advantages and certain, I would almost say like,
that's where I was getting to.
Yeah. Right. Like less so is it the colors or the credence or any of that thing. It's the diversity of journey, of experiences of what you came from. Did you struggle? Did you, because such a huge amount of that people that reach that peak of that summit to become a lawyer, to finish law school, all have such similar experiences and such similar upbringings, right? Like you might be a completely different color, different, absolute viewpoint.
But when you look at the students at law school, they tend to be from higher socioeconomic backgrounds.
Exactly. Regardless of all that other stuff.
Regardless of all the other things, right? And you do see that, like, for example, that like, well, women in law school are going to probably more identify with like female clients, and like you see women go into family law and those sorts of things, and those are all stereotypes, by the way. Right. But like you see that there is like some struggle within that, like the top socioeconomic section, like they might like, I guess maybe this is best illustrated through a story of something that happened to me at law school. In terms of diversity. So one of the law schools so the UofC law school actually accepts people not just based on grades, but they also do it based on life experience. So that's one of those schools. So I went to UVic, but UofC has like quite a bit of an older population because a lot of what they base it on is your life experience. I was also accepted to UofC. Yeah. Based on a lot of the life experience I gained in Lister. So to my story in law school, I went right through undergrad into law school. I didn't take a break. I was young in my year because my birthday's in December. But I took 5 years to do my undergrad. So I wasn't as young as I could have theoretically been going into law school. But on the younger side. So by the end of law school, we'd figured out that I was the fourth youngest person in my class. So that being said, out of 100 people to be the fourth youngest, that's pretty young. Yeah. Our average age, I think, was like 28 or 29. Some of my friends are in their 50s from law school. Like people will make changes at all different times, right? But the majority of people do their undergrad, get some work experience, and then go to law school. I kind of knew based on my experience with the UofA that if I didn't jump right into law school, I was never going back to university. So I just went through, and I remember somebody when they found out how old I was. So I would have been 23 at the time in first year, 22, 23, I think was the first year. So they found that out and went, "You shouldn't be in law school." And I went, "Why not?" And they're like, "You're too young." I was like, "What do you mean I'm too young?" They're like, "You have no life experience. How are you going to help clients? You don't know what it's like to work in an office. You don't have business experience. Like you're still developing at 22, 23. And I was like, I honestly wanted to just slap him across the face because this was a male, of course, telling me that I was too young and too female to be in law. That was also another comment that did come up, right. Because he thought I was too emotional being a young female. But that's beside the point, but right. Of the story. But so we then started comparing experiences because he was like, well, he had worked as a social worker and he'd worked in a hospital and then he came to law school. Right. So in his mind, yeah, he's qualified for law school. And I agree, he's more than qualified for law school. But I didn't agree that I wasn't qualified for law school. I went and I said, "How many depositions have you been in?" And he went, "None." I was like, "I've been interviewed for lawyers for over 8 hours. I've been sitting in a courtroom for 4 hours. And I had to do 2 or 3 affidavits where I had to travel downtown at an urgent pace and go over them with the lawyers, sign them, and get them into court on time. I also witnessed a break-in in the LHSA and had to report.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that
as well. Yeah. So I witnessed the break-in to the LDL office and had severe PTSD from that because of resident services reaction to that and having to go to the police station, get a like literally identify someone and like go with it. So those are all things. So like I have a large variety of experiences just because, and so like I might not have had those many experiences if I was only in university for 4 years. That 5th year really let me spread those sorts of things out. Yeah. So I feel like also my experience as an FC, as the VP of finance for the LHSA, and like I was still very involved in the LHSA even after I left. Like I was still more than willing to be assistant and all those sorts of things. So like my involvement did not end when I moved out of Lister. So like, I felt like I was qualified to be in law school, especially since I got into a program that was based on life experience.
Yeah.
And I also had been drafting contracts at my summer job. So like, I was working for an oil and gas company doing lease agreements.
Yeah.
Like, try to tell me just because I'm 23 that I don't have enough experience to be in law school.
And it's funny because I think that all kind of ties back together with what we were saying earlier, because I think he picked the wrong person to make this point about, and that's why you don't go making assumptions about people without finding out. But I think he is onto something, a really big issue that we do have. I think he was very much wrong, and that's why you don't go throwing things at people without actually investigating. But I do think just
experience is important,
right?
Like, and having an ability to relate to your clients is important.
Exactly.
But that doesn't come from age.
No, it doesn't come from age. It comes from real experience. Exactly. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
But I feel like, what you see of what, not to defend this guy, he sounds like an idiot, but in just the way you laid out the arguments, just kind of steel manning his point, I do see that as a very tough issue of these people that go to school and don't get any work experience. They haven't worked growing up, just go to school. They either try to go in the real world, don't really like it because it is so much different. And they're working in an office and all those things he kind of tried to throw at you, not realizing that you'd been through the ringer with all these things. But if you hadn't, there is those people, they go, I'm going to go back to school. They get another degree, they stay and become the professors. And that's who was teaching me business, was those people. And you could tell they had no idea. So that is an issue, but you just can't go throwing that at people without knowing
but
them,
also
right? Like,
we need professors, because
you do, but
how do we get the best lawyers without someone to teach them?
Very fair. But if a lawyer has never operated law in their life and never left the law school, how good of law, right? Like in business, I can only talk about my degree, but there was clearly professors that had never worked a day in their life, had never left the UofA, had only learned business from the textbook, and were teaching things that, as somebody that had worked since I was 12 years old, watching my dad operate a business, and I was like, none of this works. You are lying to these kids. You're filling these kids' heads with nonsense, right? Like, that was my big issue. And I do think tying that to age is a poor idea, because you don't know what life experience. And this is why I wanted to bring it back even further back to like what we're talking about, of that
the hard work and stuff, or
the diversity thing of like the diversity of experience. Because I think what you're saying of, I think you kind of mentioned it in passing with another point you're making of, just because you've had those privileged experience doesn't mean, I've said this a million times on this podcast, the worst thing you experience is the worst thing you experience to everybody. Even if you had an amazingly sheltered life, the worst things you experience, that's how evolutionarily we're designed to grow. We take in trauma and we grow from it. So if you're insulated from a lot of bad things, right? Like if you grow up in, Suriname or some African country that you are, in a really tough go, and you have all these things, you're going to build from those traumas. But if you don't have that around, you have a typically sheltered life, the experiences you do to suffer, your brain will take those on as the worst thing you've experienced. Is that's how it benchmarks and creates things, because you can only know what you know. And because of that, you can have these people that have all these different experiences, can come from this life. It doesn't mean that they haven't suffered and that they don't deserve it. This is where I think the hole in a lot of these viewpoints of, we have to operate the society off of how much struggle you've taken in, but that kind of breaks down, because everybody's struggle is very much similar in a vein,
real and valid.
Exactly. You can't invalidate it with those things, right? And that's why,
like obviously a child starving in Africa is very different than the Wi-Fi network is down and I can't go on Facebook,
right? But
to people, that does seem like a huge issue at the time,
right?
A person in Africa would be like, why? I don't care. So I agree. Those experiences are different, but also I think the point that you're getting at is like, if all we have for lawyers is the experience,
exactly where I was going.
So if we only have the lawyers that experience with, the worst thing that has happened to me is I didn't have Wi-Fi.
Exactly.
Well, it's hard for them to relate to their clients.
100%. Or they might have a certain subset of clients that they can really relate to.
Yeah, exactly.
But now you have 1,000 lawyers that can all relate to these couple clients. You need a little bit of diversity to make sure that everybody's fully fulfilled. Exactly.
And so
exactly where it's going.
Yeah. And so I definitely agree with that. And I think diversity in the law school is so important. And I think that UVic, especially from what I've noticed as compared to other schools, from what I've heard from stories, I mean, I obviously only attended UVic, which is quite a liberal school in terms of law schools.
Mhm.
We're known as like the hippy dippy school.
Yeah.
I mean, we're West Coast, we're chill, we're fun. Yeah, so I know that UVic has undertaken a lot of efforts to really make sure that they are trying to get some diversity,
Yeah.
and trying to get like the UFC program, where they're trying to get people who maybe didn't get a good LSAT score, because the LSAT's freaking tough. Like, I hate the fact that law school is based on the LSAT for a large part. Like, I did amazing on the LSAT, but I do well on tests.
Right.
So
that was designed for someone.
It was designed for someone like me. So, I mean, I am well aware of that privilege. I definitely got into law school easier than other people that would have had to struggle to get into it.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that I didn't have other struggles.
Right.
But also, yeah. So, but to get into my point here, the UVic, they like to say the UVic difference, air quotes, is that right now they've actually developed something called the JD program. So there's JD is the program for law school, the Juris Doctorate. They've developed the JID, which is the Juris Indigenous Doctorate. And so they've actually started to populate a whole area of law and lawyers that are specialized in Aboriginal, Indigenous law. They have that lens. Obviously, they still get the training of the black and white colonial law, but they have this extra training that gives them that like extra cultural sensitivity, like understanding and all those sorts of things. So that's one cool thing that they've done. But also, I think so. One of my really good friends in law school was somebody who I actually think is like amazing, and like for talking about diversity in the law profession, because she's brilliant, very intelligent, but she's had to work very hard to get to where she is. She's from Colombia. She's immigrated to Canada. She is a woman. English is not her first language. But like a lot of these things you wouldn't realize because she's a lawyer, right? You just think she's lived a privileged life. All of this is great. But I remember when she joined her firm that I actually worked at the time, she went, "Why are we so white? Why, like, that's an issue." And I went and thought, yeah, you know what? I didn't really realize that we were so white. But we did have like a diversity of experiences. But no, I agree. There is a need for like the firm that I was at the time was like a pretty specific like litigation firm. So typically they do get clients that are more like big corporations, white males. They tend to look for more stereotypical lawyers. She's amazing at her law firm. She's still there. She's doing a great job. But I love talking to her about diversity in the profession and like the efforts to get into law school and all those sorts of things, because our experiences were so different getting into law school, and what law school is like for us, and what practice is like for us now too. I mean, I've not had an easy route in practice. But that being said, like I still have so many privileges being white, relatively
Canadian,
Canadian, good socioeconomic status. Like I came from a good background. Like I didn't, if I needed something, my parents could pay for it. Like I didn't have to struggle. Like they taught me budgeting and stuff like that, but like I knew that like I always had a safety net to fall back on. Whereas like some people, a lot of people don't.
Majority,
vast majority, right? So I have always been very lucky. I am gifted with a high IQ, so the system works for me. Most of the time. Those privileges are really great. And I acknowledge them because, like, for example, like I have a lot more privileges than someone who is Indigenous that has the exact same qualifications as me, exact same background, except the race is different, right? So just based on one thing that shouldn't have an impact, there's a privilege based on the color of my skin, right?
For sure.
Is what I'm trying to get at there.
Yeah.
So I'm aware that I have a lot of privileges, and obviously being a lawyer, I have privileges that other people don't have. Like, for example, in the Calgary courthouse, like lawyers don't have to go through the same security as everybody else that goes through. Well, I mean that we don't want to wait in the same line. Time is short.
Stuff to do. Yeah. Courts are already backed up enough.
Yeah. So like, I mean, it makes sense. You can kind of go, okay, these people have been certified by the Law Society as capable of being lawyers. Okay. If they stab someone, they have a lot to lose. Yeah. So they're probably not bringing a knife to court.
Right.
They can go through a little faster. So there are privileges that I have, and I recognize that. So that's why I really enjoy talking with my friend about these sorts of things, is because it reminds me, she's so good at reminding me that there are so many people that don't have privileges in law, or don't have a really easy time getting into law. And I think just looking at me and hearing that, like, I've started my own firm and all of these sorts of things, like people are like, oh, you got A's throughout like undergrad and high school. You must be living life so freaking easy. But I started my firm not out of like, well, partially out of desire, obviously, but it was out of necessity, because big law, the typical system, did not work.
Wasn't set up for you.
Was not set up for me. If I did have like an easy, custom, perfect life, and my only visible disadvantage unquotes, is that I'm female. And I have had clients tell me they don't want me to work on their file because I'm female. I have actually had that happen. Yeah, I got removed from a file because he was like, she's too female. She doesn't look like she's going to be hard enough. I was like, what?
Have you met me?
Excuse me. But yeah, so I was like, are you kidding me? Like, and like the partners got involved, tried to get him to like realize like, no, she's capable. Like she's going to do a badass job. And nope, because I was female, he didn't want me. But there's a lot of things that I have that are invisible. As you probably know, I'm quite open about mental health, which is a very hard thing to do in the legal profession.
Yeah, I bet.
And I have had my fair share of struggles with mental health. I have borderline personality disorder. Like I'm on medication for it. I manage it. I go to therapy, all those sorts of things. But it is not conducive to big law. Some days I just don't feel like I can do the work that I need to do. Like obviously if it's urgent, like if it's court, I'm going to go to court and I'm going to get it done. I just may be drained more than a normal person at the end of the day.
Which is probably pretty typical someone in that profession, you know, even on the best of days, right? Like that's not that outside of the realm of what should be expected. Yeah.
And so, but like in big law, I was expected to make my target no matter what. No matter what happened.
And what about openness too, about what you're going through as you're doing it, to be open with clients, with yourself, with the firm? How was that?
Yeah. So, in my first firm, so where I articled and co-opted, because after you get your law degree, you have to do a year of articling, which is like the practical experience.
Right.
Law school is this is how you read cases. This is the system. These are the black and white. And then articling is really to give you that year of, this is what actually clients are like. This is what an actual file is like, before you get certified as a lawyer, and like to take the bar exam and all that kind of stuff. But so that's where I was for there. And when I was there, I wasn't super open about my mental health, but I wasn't like, didn't hide it. But I can remember being in the elevator with an associate and him being like, what are you doing this weekend? And I was like, oh, I'm going to the Lawyers Assistance Program retreat. Well, the Lawyers Assistance Program is a program in BC. They have one in pretty much every province, I think now. I think they do in every province now. But it's essentially a service that's separate from the Law Society, but funded by the Law Society, to make sure that there's mental and like physical wellness in the profession.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people assume that it's just about substance abuse, alcohol, drugs, those sorts of things.
Which is also very important. But
very important, yes. And that is the major thing that people get referred to them for, is usually substance abuse, depression, anxiety, those sorts of things. So they do have a little bit of mental health stuff for like depression and anxiety.
Some resources.
And that's really how I got involved with the Lawyers Assistance Program. Was I started in first year, two of my friends started a UofA Wellness Resources club. And I was one of the founding members with them. Like they literally just dragged me in because I happened to be sitting next to one of them eating pizza at the same time. And it just changed my law school experience. But so I helped build that for the 3 years I was there. And part of that was getting the Lawyers Assistance Program into schools to try and get them to realize we also support law students. If you're having an issue, you can come to us. We're not going to report back to the law school what you're doing, those sorts of things. We're obviously going to give you the right advice. So like, for example, if somebody was like having a problem with like alcohol use and it was starting to affect their school, and they got to a point where they thought they might have cheated on an exam because like things had just spiraled and they got so desperate. Well, they could go to LAP, the Lawyers Assistance Program, and chat with them about it. And they'd be like, okay, we're going to get you some help. This is how we're going to approach it with the law school. We'll be there to help you through it. Like, obviously the right thing to do is to come forward. Don't just hide it, those sorts of things. Right. So it's really a source for just lawyers, and it's also for their partners and stuff as well.
That's awesome.
That helps them get the support they need without worrying about if it's going to affect their law society requirements.
That's the biggest piece of it. And you see this not even just in law, like the NHL had to come up with this, right? Of substance abuse programs and mental health programs that you can go to and say, I need help. And it will give that layer of insulation of protection against the team and what they want you to play. But hey, if you need help, that's what insulates it. And said, when you call these guys, I can't remember what the actual program is called. Like, it's shut off. You need help for this couple of weeks. The team steps back and says, you go do what you need. Yeah. And you see more and more, all these corporations and societies of a certain size are all recognizing the need for this. And it's hopefully becoming more just status quo. Commonplace that this is part of it, because I've actually, something like the U of A and their resources. When I've talked to a few people, actually, Marley Corrigan, who I talked about on this podcast when we're talking about Carter, and when she went through the loss of her brother and the lack of resources that she found there, I was very disappointed in that. And to think that, a law society, because the university needs this, because so much of the time it's the university that is causing so much of the mental health struggles on campus, right? Like, I mean, me and you know this more than others, but
so I can go two ways here. I can continue talking about the lawyers, or if you want, I can pivot.
Either way, I just think it's such an important thing in every realm. It is academic, professional, everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at LAP and for law right now, they've made a big push with the Law Society. They're actually doing a poll and like survey across all the lawyers in BC. I think actually it's across Canada now. I think it's the CBA, so Canadian Bar Association, is taking it over. But they're literally interviewing on mental health and how the profession affects mental health. Lawyers have a very high suicide rate for a profession, and like stress. And we see a lot of people who are in minorities or who are disadvantaged leave the profession because it doesn't work for people who can't handle like a 9-to-5 burnout. Like, if you need a 9-to-5 Monday to Friday, law is not for you. Not as a lawyer anyways. There's ways to be involved in it, but not as a lawyer.
And I think another piece of this puzzle too, I think there's all that, but then I think also with a couple professions, when you look at the suicide rate, like dentistry, lawyers, all these places that are very high end financially, I think there's also all those things come in, and this may be, 1% of the whole piece of the pie, but I don't think it can be discounted completely, as I think there's such a push with society on certain things of what you need to achieve, and money is one of them. And I think some people chase so hard this dream, and they get told by their parents or their grandparents or whatever it is, you need to become a lawyer, you need to become a dentist, this is what it is, and you're going to get this money, and then you achieve it and you find that it's not everything you chase. And I feel like that is not,
I have actually very recently gone through a big shift in my life.
Yeah. Tell me about it,
Because
if you want.
like I did start my own firm,
Mhm.
and so yeah, I told you I'd be really open about my mental health.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm known for. It's a big part of who I present myself to be
Mhm.
as not just a lawyer, but as now a firm owner. Is I do push myself to be approachable. I push
Mhm.
myself as like, it doesn't make me a weak lawyer to admit that I have BPD.
Mhm.
It probably makes me a better lawyer
Mhm.
because I can understand how I need to navigate things. I need to be really organized. I need to be prepared. What
Mhm.
if I have a bad day? What if I can't handle something? Like those sorts of things.
It probably allows you to have empathy with a whole different subset of
For
people
sure.
that maybe have been missed.
Yeah. And so for me, like my big push is I'm when I went into law school, I thought I was going to be a contract lawyer. I thought I was going to go do lease agreements back at my oil and gas company.
Mhm.
And I thought that was going to be my life. I changed pretty quick in law school,
Mhm.
actually got really interested in criminal law and
Mhm.
litigation. And
Now you're
then,
talking.
yeah. So I took all the crim courses at UVic.
Mhm.
Which is like the best place to take crim courses because the author of the criminal jury instructions is Gary Ferguson, and he is, or Jerry Ferguson, and he is a professor at the U of A for crim. So
Cool.
like, if you want to know crim, you get it from
Mhm.
Jerry. Like
Mhm.
he knows the system
Well,
inside and out.
first you get it from Criminal Minds, then you get it from Jerry.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
typical progression, I'm sure.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so yeah, it's like I was interested in crim. It's very hard to get into crim as an articling student. There's
Mhm.
not very many articling positions. Coming from Alberta, I didn't have very many connections to people in
Mhm.
BC. So I actually really struggled to find an articling position that worked because a lot of people, when I went back to Calgary, were like, you went to school in BC, you don't know Alberta law, like we're not willing
Mhm.
to take the risk on you. Why do you want to come back? When I went in BC, they're like, you only came here for law school, aren't you going back to Calgary? So I had a little bit of an issue with that as
Mhm.
well. It was a little bit harder to find a position. Um, but so I did actually go into litigation and loved it. Knew that's what I wanted to do. But the only case that sticks out for me from there that like I really enjoyed
Mhm.
was a pro bono case where I was helping someone um, with payment terms in a small
Mhm.
claims matter.
Mhm.
Um, she didn't qualify for legal aid. She had not had like she'd already had this judgment against her because she didn't have a lawyer in the first place. She probably could have avoided the judgment if she had a lawyer in the first place, but now she owed this debt of
Mhm.
less than 10 grand. But for her, less than 10 grand is still a lot of money
Mhm.
because, well, she can't afford a lawyer. She's worried about being evicted from her house, like all of those sorts of things.
Mhm.
And every conversation I had with her literally just filled my soul.
Mhm.
Like I would get off the phone and I would be like, even if it had been a bad conversation, I would have just been like, oh, that just filled me. That
Mhm.
I made a difference to someone in a very tangible way.
Yeah.
And like we got her the terms that she wanted. And
Wow.
I remember after that, like payment hearing, she called me on the phone, bawling her eyes out, going, "Thank you so much. I couldn't have done this without you."
Mhm.
And to me, it wasn't like necessarily like the gratitude of the fact that she was like so thankful at the end. Like I still would have loved that case, even if she hadn't called me crying at the end.
Right.
Um, because I enjoyed the person that I
Mhm.
was helping. I could see that this wasn't just like, for example, I worked on a file with like an oil well
Mhm.
and like millions of dollars. And that's cool. I don't
Mhm.
really care what oil
Mhm.
and gas company foots the bill for that or what insurance company foots the bill for that. I'm
I
sorry.
I
It's
feel I
like,
feel you so
yeah,
much
yeah.
right now. It's a,
I mean, I don't like when on files I don't get to talk to clients or
Mhm.
like it's just a nameless person. So realistically, my value where I'm kind of pushing myself as a person and like as a firm is so when I started, I was really money driven. I was like, I'm going to be big law. I'm going to be a partner. I'm going to have my own firm. It's going to be chambers law. Like, it's going to be like have 40 lawyers and we're going to be badass and be downtown Vancouver in a high rise. Well, yeah, that would be cool. But to get there, I probably would have had to kill myself.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
The path between where you are now to where, not that it's not achievable, but the things that come in between that you can recognize are going to be something you don't know if you want to set yourself up for.
Yeah. And so I did do, after articling, I was an associate at a personal injury firm here in Vancouver. And I did enjoy it. I was planning on staying there for a very long time. I loved the people. Yeah. I did like the work a lot more because even though it was personal injury, insurance law, the adjusters that we worked with were the same adjuster for the life of the file. And they like actually care about their files because they're rated on them and all that kind of stuff.
I gotcha.
And
my
job,
in the game.
Yeah, my job was not to try and get people's settlements as low as possible. My job with the insurance companies was actually just to give them the fairest amount possible. Was like, this is what the law is going to say. This is what their situation says. This is probably what's going to come out at court. Do you even want to go that far? You know, you're going to have to pay them this much.
Yeah.
Just pay them. So that was always really satisfying for me because I was making a difference. I was actually like, not that I was fighting for the other side, because I wasn't. Like, obviously there were claims where I was like, no, that's bullshit. Deny it. Like, go to court. I don't think they should be awarded $4 million for this. Yeah. Right. But that's where I found the most value was that in that job was that I was helping people get the fair result. And that's always what I kind of want to go towards is helping people, and fairness and what they're entitled to. Right. That's the whole like purpose in air quotes behind the justice system is to address harms.
Balance the scales.
There's a whole whack of policy reforms that we could get into.
Oh yeah.
So many issues with all of these things. I don't think we have enough time for that, but
fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. But that being said, so going forward, I actually broke my tailbone in August of 2019.
Terrible
curling.
Injury.
Yeah. About a month and a half after starting at that new firm. It took a long time I'm still fighting it. I'm still not getting it healed.
Can't put a cast on your ass.
Nope, you cannot.
It's tough.
Yeah. So my boyfriend's pretty sure that if I had just been able to take the time off work
and recover,
I probably wouldn't be in this position. But because there was like not just pressure from the firm, but a lot of internal pressure because of what I was wanting to achieve with the firm. Yeah. I was always pushing to go back. Like I broke my tailbone
and all that
on a Friday and I was in on a Monday. I couldn't sit. I could barely stand. I was still in. I just asked for a sit stand desk so that I could adjust what was most painful at the time. I was prescribed tramadol, which is a very potent painkiller. But I couldn't work on it. So I didn't take it.
Had to get it out, hey?
And just pained it out. Yeah. Because, well, I could have been out not in pain, but I would have been friggin' useless. Like I can remember taking it and like words blurring together. Like that's not good for a lawyer.
Yeah.
So, so I just was like, okay, well, what do I do here? Okay. Well, I still like, I have files that are going on. Like I had a settlement conference scheduled for the Friday after. Like everybody's busy at the firm. Like we had like 50 lawyers, but everybody's packed, right? So I don't feel like I can transition these files to anybody. And eventually I sat down in front of, like, I told them obviously what happened. And I sat down, I think on like Wednesday in front of my mentor lawyer at the firm. And she went, "What are you doing?" And that was the first time I'd really had somebody be like, in law, be like, look after yourself. That being said, there was still so much internal pressure, not from her, But from everywhere else,
Yeah.
that I ended up going back a lot sooner than I should have. I only took 2 weeks off and then a gradual return. It was kind of okay until November. Then I did a plane trip up to Prince George in a tiny plane, did a discovery in an uncomfortable chair, came back was screwed again.
Yeah.
So between that issue and then the pandemic happening, my mental health was not great in 2021 at the beginning of it, which makes sense. And so I was actually started to get open about it in about April of 2021. And May 1st, 2021, I was terminated.
Wow.
So we parted ways. It was the right thing to do. I'm not upset about it. Like, I don't think it actually had anything to do with my mental health. I think it was just bad timing. But I was already in a bad spot with my mental health, and that just drew me down worse, because now I didn't have an income. I couldn't afford my medication. So I stopped taking my medication.
Wow.
Because that's what BPD sometimes does, is I'd skip a couple doses because I literally couldn't afford to get my pills, because I didn't have healthcare anymore. And I wasn't eligible for fair pharmacare in BC here because I'd made too much as an articling student. So, and I didn't want anybody to know that I had failed. Like, in my mind, I had failed because that was where I was supposed to be until I was a partner, and like my life was going to be set. I loved that firm. I always got really good feedback on my work. It was just, I couldn't, with everything going on, meet the hours that they wanted. It was solely a business decision.
Yeah.
And I don't fault them for that at all. I am completely happy that I'm not working there anymore. I'm still friends with people that work there. I still am in contact with them. 100% of the time, if I think that they can do the case, I refer to them. So like, there's no hard feelings by any means. So I'm actually quite glad that they terminated me, because it gave me the chance to look after myself. It took me way too long to get to actually look after myself, because I started to miss a couple doses, and then I started to say, well, I don't really notice an issue, because my brain was not getting the medication. So it wasn't thinking as rationally as it normally would. So I started missing more pills, and then I just stopped taking them.
Wow.
So
what time frame is this?
So I think by June or July of last year, so 2020. So actually, all of those 2021s were 2020. Sorry.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was thinking
that makes more sense. Yeah,
recent.
sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sorry. For the listeners who didn't know this, I have a bit of a concussion. I was actually in a car accident on May 19th. So I'm on the tail end of it. Sometimes my details are a little fuzzy. So
fair enough.
So
bringing everyone up to speed.
Full timeline here. I articled in 2019. And started in 2019. That's when I broke my tailbone, August 2019. And then May 2020 was when I was done at that firm.
Right.
So so like June 2020, I think, June, July.
So that was only a couple months into the pandemic.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I actually had to take another section of time off in February. So I was actually already at home, off work, basically laying in bed all day, every day, because my tailbone was so bad I couldn't do anything before the pandemic happened. So I actually was in like quote unquote quarantine, isolation for about 2 months before anybody else had to be, just because I couldn't leave. So it was kind of funny when the pandemic happened and I was starting to get better, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going out places again when the pandemic started.
Yeah.
And everybody else was like, I'm staying home.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I still stayed home, but I was like,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I can finally go to the grocery store to help someone get groceries. Like, it's the little things, right? But yeah, so then about June, July was when things started to really hit the fan. And so that whole process between June and July and December 2020, when I actually hit like my mental health rock bottom. I went to the hospital. I got into the Richmond mental health system, all of those sorts of things. I'm not shy about it. I fully believe that if you need help, you should get help. You shouldn't be afraid of doing it. You shouldn't have to hide the fact that you have
Mental
gotten
health.
help.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
sure.
If even just one person listens to this and is like, next time they're going to go talk to their doctor about something, then I'm happy. Right. My job is completed. So between then and December, I completely reevaluated my life. People that were rocks in my life are nowhere to be found. People that I thought were just acquaintances are now best friends. Like things that just all have changed. And it really made me evaluate like why I was in law again.
Did an inventory of what was serving you.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I really came back to was, why did I get into law? Like at the beginning of this, I said I got into law to help people. That's what I wanted to do. And so I was thinking, okay, well, how can I do this? How can I help people and still be a lawyer, but not within the framework of big law, because it's not going to work for me. Right. And so it took a little bit. There's been some hiccups, ups and downs, but I was eventually planning on opening my firm in 2022. That was a decision that we made kind of around, I want to say March of this year. So yeah, everything like with December and everything, I got back on my meds. I'm taking my meds regularly. I see my psychologist and my doctor regularly. And I do all the things that I need to do. And it was funny. I just had a conversation with my psychiatrist yesterday. And I said, or 2 days ago, and I said, it was kind of like I got into a mental health car accident and got paralyzed, and I had to learn how to walk again.
Yeah.
So I've learned how to walk again with my mental health. And so for me, it was, how do I do all the things I need to do for my mental health? Because I have borderline personality disorder. I have BPD. It's a fact. I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to say, oh, I can't do this because I'm going to do this because I have BPD, right? That's an even better reason to do it, because look at all the people that I can have empathy for, that I can understand, like
for sure,
that I can help. Well, how do I do that in a way that I can still have the flexibility and the freedom to take care of myself, but also take care of my clients?
Right.
And so in the crazy twist of fate, May 19th, the same day that I got into a car accident, I had a contract end, and I decided to launch my own firm a little bit sooner than I had thought. So it's kind of funny because I launched a firm with a concussion. The same day that I set up my social media to announce that I was going to do it, I was actually in the hospital for 4 hours in a neck brace with a C-spine on.
Wow.
Because it was the day after the accident. And we thought I was fine at the time. And the next day, the concussion was so bad. And when I went in,
concussions before too.
Oh, I've had so many concussions before. Yeah. And this is actually probably the most normal concussion that I've had as a car accident.
Wow.
Because I mean, like, I have a concussion from a unicorn. Like, how many people can say that, right?
Fair enough.
And so that being said, when I went into triage, they were like, okay, we're going to touch your neck. And it was tender all the way down on every single thing. I had some tingling. I was very concussed. So she literally went to me. She says, do you have to go to the bathroom? I go, I don't think so. She goes, I'd go if I was you. I'm putting you in a C-spine. And like, I mean, if I'd been at the scene, they wouldn't have let me go to the bathroom, but I'd already walked in and stuff. So she thought I might as well be comfortable ish. But yeah, so I spent 4 hours in a C-spine, got a CT scan, confirmed everything is like fine. I just have a really bad concussion. Because I mean, I guess we're filming this on the 12th. So that's 4 weeks almost 4 weeks later.
Wow.
And I still that's why I'm dark on the video, is because I don't have full lighting in my office.
Yeah. And we discussed it before, just making sure parameters. Cause I know how tough it is to recover a concussion. And this type of thing is usually one of the hardest things you can do, is that prolonged using of your brain in the same action and that. And I'm loving the story. I just kind of want to go back just because there's so much in there that I
no worries
to pick up on. I'd noticed that you mentioned when you left the firm, when you guys parted ways, that feeling and that feeling of failure, right? Because in your head, right. And when you look at you now, it's not a failure because you look at what it brought you to, but in that moment, and it's all about the framing. That's kind of where I wanted to drill down on.
Sorry to interrupt, but to go with that, that's kind of where I was going to get, was that, I really had to reframe what success was in my mind. Right.
Exactly.
And so I tell clients that all the time now, is that the reason I started my firm, and the reason why, like, for example, I have hardship rates, I have student rates, I have seniors rates, I do a lot of flat fee or cap billing. My job is not here to make me a millionaire. I'm not in it so that I can buy a downtown condo and like a cabin on Salt Spring Island and a vacation home in Mexico. Like, no, I'm quite happy with my Hyundai Accent. I'm quite happy renting until I can afford to buy a house, if ever. Because I live in the Lower Mainland and it's ridiculous here. But as long as I can pay my bills and not worry about, being
able to pay for your meds or something.
Yeah.
Right.
So like the basics, right? Like I don't need to be fancy all the time, right? Like, this is the most done up I've been all week, except for when I went to court.
Yeah.
But like, I put makeup on today and a button-up shirt.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Quite often, the other outfit choice I was deciding upon was just my UofA law hoodie.
Yeah.
So like, I have client conversations where I'm in a tank top all the time on Zoom. Like, you can see my tattoos, like all of those sorts of things. And so it really did chart, like, I have reframed what my version of success is.
Yeah.
It was to get back to where you were leading with that, is because to me, the success of being a lawyer is not receiving the prestige or anything like that. The success for me in a lawyer is when I get a text message from my client not at 2 a.m., this one specific, at 10 a.m. saying, I slept for the first time in 8 months because of our conversation last night.
Yeah. Yeah, that goes a long way. Hey? And it shows how important it is to understand the why. And that's kind of why I wanted to really make sure we focused on it. And it's kind of going to bring up exactly what you said, of just reframing that success in your mind is so important. And you can either have two options. You can wait until life forces you to, through something like that, whether it's a car accident, parting ways with an employer, whatever it is, having a kid, there's so many things that can force you to do it. But when you see the impact and when you listen to other stories, I always say the best lessons are the ones you don't have to learn yourself, that you can learn from others. When you hear somebody go through this, and you can recognize the importance of checking in with yourself and framing what success is with you. And I think the most important reason why it's important is because for you to frame success, you have to ask yourself why. Why are you doing something? Are you doing it for money? Are you doing it to help people? Are you doing that? And when you really focus on that, that's what's going to reframe success, is truly asking yourself why you're doing something.
Your core values, like what is actually driving you to do this?
Exactly.
And if it's something like tangible, like I'm doing this to get a car, or I'm doing this to get a house, or I'm doing this, like whatever, that is usually not as intrinsically motivating to people as I'm doing this to fill my soul. I'm doing this to make a difference in someone's life. I'm doing this for this, like, good air quote reason. Right. And I feel like that is kind of funny that at 27, I'm 28 now. I, for the first time, actually took the chance to think for myself on what my values were. It was unfortunate that it was that situation, breaking my tailbone and everything, and being off my meds, that really forced me to evaluate things. But I went through a really rocky time because I was evaluating things. Like, me and my parents have a completely different relationship now than we did even at the beginning of 2021. Um, we've had to reevaluate how we communicate, those sorts of things, because there was a lot of things that I had ingrained from me from childhood that I just thought were normal, or that I thought was okay, or something
that there's
like
no
that.
other options. I don't have the say to dictate what this relationship should be because it's always been dictated to me. You don't have any
and so like in school, if like I got one suspension and it was in grade 1, and I to this day stand by that the kid lied. So that being said, I mean, probably whatever. It's whatever. But
little seed of an obsession with fairness and justice there.
Of a obsession of fairness and justice. I got home and I got in so much friggin' trouble. I literally never skipped a class again, like, or anything. Like, I think maybe once I skipped a class in high school, and I think I skipped it to go do something for sports med. So like in high school, I was known as a goody goody. Like, there is a running inside joke that narc is tattooed across my forehead because I just seem like a goody goody. I'm a lawyer. I didn't drink underage really. Like, I mean, I did a couple times with my parents' permission before I went to, like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you mean.
So many of those things that I just like almost had like terror induced into myself that I had to like unlearn during that time.
That was the value system that was put onto you and that's what prevents you from asking yourself those questions and really taking, and that's why it takes something so traumatic to shake you out of it. And it's funny to hear you say that because it's I mean, I've told the story a million times in this podcast now, but when I decided, it took me getting to like at the time, my mental health rock bottom, I maybe have been to lower places since then, but of feeling that and forcing you to ask myself, why am I doing this? What am I after? And change that and change the dynamics and starting this podcast to chase something. And it was reframing success because for so long, and what brought me to that rock bottom was for so long, I'd framed success out of making lots of money, having the truck, having the house, having all these things, right? That was what I framed success as. And I got it at 23 years old, right after university, very lucky, very privileged. And I say that too, but I worked my ass off but I got there and I wasn't happy with it. And it turned out, hey, this is the value system I've been on. And this isn't really rewarding me. This isn't filling me up like those text messages you framed in these episodes. This is what fills me up and this is what I enjoy. And what I found was in framing success, how I was framing success before was having a goal, right? Of something to attain, and then I'm going to reach that. That is never going to be attainable, right? And now you're setting yourself up for failure instead of success. And listening to you say that you had this plan in your head of I'm going to be at this firm till I hit this point and then I can start my own, but I have to do it in this. You're setting yourself up for failure because now you've completely limited yourself. It's not a journey. It's an outcome of what you're trying to go to. And then what you did was you took that, you saw what happened when you took all these outside forces and trying to guide you obviously within yourself. You always have your own things guiding, but you get to this point and you now have reframed it. So now once you start your own thing, and once you start your own thing, just like when I started this podcast, and I apologize to people that have heard this a million times because I say this all the time, but the only way for me to fail at this podcast now is to give up. Whereas before, when I had an employee, right? And same with you, before there was outside factors that could dictate to you by your own admission or your own setting it up because you're the one that put the value on this success, how you had framed it. But now with this new firm, you've set yourself up so that the only way you can fail is for you to give up on it. And if you just keep trying and showing up and keep building it in one foot in front of the other, that is success. And now you can succeed every day regardless. And if that day looks like, hey, I can't get out of bed today, as long as you don't give up on that next day and you keep going, you're still success. And you almost take failure right off the table, or you take failure off the table externally and put it inside. The only way you can fail is on you. You can give up on your own dream, but the outside world cannot touch it. And it's up to you. And that is what I love. And that is what with this podcast, trying to encourage people to do and trying to encourage people to chase that, find that, ask those questions why, and set yourself up with whatever you're doing in that factor to frame success in a way that it's only on you. Take it on yourself. You can do that with baking, with being a lawyer, with starting a podcast. You can do that with anything you want. Just find that framework so you set it up so it's all on you. And take it on you. And you will find that the success you can reach and the highs you'll reach are so much higher than trying to go in this framework and battle against everybody else doing the same thing. And climbing on the ladder, it just not for you. And then you can set it up for exactly what you need, and you can prioritize your mental health. It's funny how similar the stories are, because that's another thing I was finding. I couldn't prioritize my mental health like I needed to. And I find with this, the more I get into this, the more freedom I'll have to prioritize that and do the things I enjoy and make sure I'm filling back up before I'm giving myself away. And I just think that's so awesome.
Pour from an empty cup. That's like one of my favorite phrases.
Exactly. I think that is so true. And you've got to do your own homework to find out what those things are that fills you up, and then try and frame your life so that you have more of that than what's going out. And that's, once you frame it like that, you're on a much better path. Yeah.
And I think I really had to go through that journey,
I bet,
in the last year, where it was, what am I wanting? Like, it was the first time where I actually asked myself, like, what do I want?
Yeah.
Like, a big thing of borderline personality disorder is that you tend to have this thing called a favorite person. So you really get attached to the person more so than like a normal person with like neurotypical phrases would. And in that person can affect your mood or your values or anything so much. If they say something like positive, you feel on the highest highs. You are right there at the top. And if they say something even slightly nitpicky, you are the lowest lows.
Yeah.
Like, everything you do is around like pleasing that person. You almost start to think, and everybody with BPD is different. So, I mean, I want to take that caveat. These are just like tendencies. And I obviously explain it as
they all
me because I know, I know mine a lot better than I know anybody else's, obviously. But yeah, so with this favorite person, a lot of times you start to try to morph yourself into them, so that, because you have such a strong fear of abandonment. Like, that's a very strong thing in people with BPD, is that they constantly fear that they're going to be abandoned, that they're too hard to love, that they're too hard to be with, that something's too much. We refer to my BPD as the gremlins in my head, just to kind of give it as like a target of like, we're all working against the gremlins. It's not Megan we're working against the gremlins, right? Because it is the gremlins in my head that when, for example, my boyfriend says something like, oh, you didn't get to clean up the cans, like the recycling in the room today. Well, the gremlins are the ones that are telling me, he thinks you're lazy. He thinks you're a slob. He thinks that you're impossible to live with. He's probably just thinking that you're a burden, all of those sorts of things. Well, no, he just wondered why I didn't have time to do the recycling today. And like, if he needed to help me. And so when you're growing up with BPD, a lot of these things, your favorite person does tend to be your parents or a teacher or somebody. It tends to be somebody when you're younger. It tends to be somebody in a position of authority. And
then at a certain age, it probably switches to someone in your peer
group.
And
then like at a certain age, it does tend to switch. Or, for example, like my mom has been one of my favorite people for forever. Like, I only really learned the term favorite person in like September. So I'm still very new learning stuff, but obviously I'm digesting at a very fast pace. But my mom was one of my favorite people forever. So just like even a sigh or something could set me off. And I actually didn't get diagnosed with borderline personality disorder until 2017, which is actually second year of law school. Wow. So that's not a fun time to get diagnosed with a new mental health condition. I was diagnosed with depression in undergrad after witnessing the break-in. I definitely had it before. That was just when I had finally removed myself from the stigma of mental health enough that I went to get help. Because that was actually the first time that I got help, because it was like kind of you said, that was my lowest moment so far at that point in time. I remember being in the shower after watching the break-in. The way Lister was set up was in Mackenzie, the VPs went off their rooms. Like, as you went into the tower, there's like 3 prongs. And if you go off to the left, that hallway, that's where the VPs live. So that's where I was. There's not like a locked door. There's just like a hallway door and you can just go in. I left my door open all the time when I was in my room, just because I wanted to be available to people. And I liked visitors. Well, if you go to the right, then you went into the common room where there's the LHSA offices and the LDL office.
Spent a lot of good times in that
area. A lot
area.
of good times in there. Yeah. Well, I went towards the office one day, and somebody had actually broken into the LDL office and tried to steal their computers. We recovered them, thankfully.
Yeah,
all of that sort of stuff.
For people that have listened to any of the other episodes, maybe with Bill Pickering. So the LDL was the dodgeball league that we ran.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I was an exec. So I think you might have even called. I think you called the cops first, obviously. But then I was the only exec that was in Lister. So I came down from my room and came and saw you right then. And I was actually with you right after that had happened and saw you all shook up and
because I literally saw the person. Like, so I walked in and there was a 40-year-old.
Which is very weird to see in Leicester if they're not in work clothes
it wasn't they weren't in work clothes. They were they looked homeless.
Sketchy. Up to
very sketchy. Not at all in the right place. And so as I'm walking towards the office, I go, "Hi." And he goes, "Hey," and just keeps walking past me. And I go, Weird. So I look and all of a sudden there's a door that has been kicked in. It's the LDL office. And I look a little closer and all the computers are gone. And instantly I go, "Oh my God." So I called all the right people, got all the stuff done. We started getting people. The funny thing was we actually found the computers had been stashed in there and we found them later.
In the couch.
Yeah.
There's a couch sitting right on and you put them between the cushions. So there were three, you will know, the
iMac,
iMac,
the desktop iMac,
full size ones with the.
So they're very thin.
Yeah.
So he just slid them in between. I was so mad when I found that out. I was but at the same time, obviously, we would have still had to go through the whole process.
I was pretty happy that we didn't lose all our computers and all our documents and all our seats. Oh no.
I'm happy that we found them.
Obviously. I know what you're saying.
I was annoyed. I was it took us a week to find them and they were in here the whole friggin' time.
Yeah, we're scoping out new computers, trying to see, we got to get insurance. Where are we going to get money for all these new computers?
He hid them real well in there. I was actually shocked. So I had to do all of that. But for me, that created such a strong trauma response that what if he hadn't turned that way first? What if he turned down our hallway and come to my room? What if he was violent? What if I hadn't been lucky enough? I was so lucky that all I got was a hey. I literally was witnessing him breaking in.
Yeah.
He could have done anything. There was nobody else in the offices. There was nobody around. I could have been in a really shitty situation.
Yeah.
And so that created a lot of PTSD, especially since that was when things were happening with the LHSA. And that was the point in time when the resident services policy was not to offer any assistance to LHSA employees because we were the ones causing damage to the students of Lister.
Wow.
So I had a pretty big fight with them because they had always said that the camera in the lounge was working. It was operational. It was not. They didn't have it working. If it had been working, we would have had perfect video of this person doing exactly that. We would have known where the iMacs had gone because we would have had video. And anyway, so I went and I said, "Why is there no video in here? Our offices are in here. You now have the SRA, so the senior resident assistants offices in here too. There's a bunch of stuff in here. And you have cameras in all the libraries and stuff you say work. Why is this not a protected area? We literally see there's a reason why we should have had a camera here. And I would feel so much safer." And I remember having the residents, whatever they're called, officer
UAPs
thing. UAPs, yeah, that one.
I'll never forget that fucking name.
Try to forget UAPs as much as possible. But I remember one of them telling me, "It's not worth doing in here." And I was like, "What do you mean it's not worth doing in here? I could have been attacked.
This is where we live.
This is where we live." Yeah, come on. And there was only one member of resident services who would talk to me after that and actually help me. God bless Angie Ross. I will always say nice, loving things about her. I mean, there's other amazing people in resident services, but
Mhm.
Angie really just picked up the ball for me, that I always feel like she needs recognition.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a few, just very few and far between people that really saw the hypocrisy and the ridiculousness that was there. And it was funny too, when Jen came on, she had mentioned, I don't think we'll ever get an apology. And I was saying, you know what, I think we might. I think they might have something that came out. And then not long after, I don't think I've even talked about this on the podcast, but after Sam came on and did the episode, I don't know if they heard the episode, but one of the main people throughout this sent him a very long email, or maybe it was an email, but just apologizing, saying that was way offside what that turned into. We recognize you guys were kids and that this was completely inappropriate, and completely came clean and took personal accountability for that one person's part in that whole thing, which was so amazing to see. And I never thought, I was playing maybe the devil's advocate side with Jen of her saying they would never, and I was just maybe taking the other side like I usually do, but it was nice to see that. And I feel like that's all it would take for a couple more of those key people to really, give some closure for so many people. I mean, when I've had this same conversation with you, with Jen, with T, with Sam, with all these people, and they've all been severely emotionally harmed by these people, and to have no consequences, it's kind of ridiculous. It's nice to see that some people can individually take that on, but the university hasn't said shit.
And I mean, that's the thing that I think really frustrates me now, having looked back at it as somebody who's now been through law school and as a lawyer, is seeing how fucked up that situation was.
So
like, I literally watched a break-in. To the starting point of this was, I was at my lowest point because I got into the shower and I thought, because I couldn't go into the office. I literally could, because my office was the VP finance office. So it was locked in the back. And I could be in there and nobody else would know I was in there because that's where the safe was. And so it had to be a little bit more separate. Right. And so I was like, nobody would have noticed if he'd stabbed me in my office or something. I got into these worst sort of situations.
And then it spirals and you think through it.
Yeah. And I went, UofA doesn't care about me. UAPS doesn't care about me. All of these people that don't care. And I was just getting into such a bad spiral with my mental health. That was the first time I had a suicidal thought where I actually went, life would be better if I was dead. And I literally remember stopping in the shower and going, what the fuck, Megan? What are you doing? Since the break-in, I couldn't leave my door open. It was always locked. My boyfriend at the time had to sleep in my room with me, which is very tough in Lister, even though I had a bigger room as a VP. But I was afraid to go anywhere or do anything by myself. I was completely paralyzed. And I just went, oh my God, I need help. That's not my voice in my head. Literally was not the same tone of voice in my head. And I went, that's it. That's it. I'm getting help. I don't care anymore. To give a little bit of background, I had a pretty rocky junior high experience. I had some issues with self-harm, with suicidal thoughts. At the time, I asked to go to counseling, and we've moved past this. We've come to terms with this episode and have moved past it with me and my parents. So all of it is good. But at the time, they had said, or one parent said, we don't go to therapy because that means admitting something's wrong.
Yeah.
Very typical conservative prairie attitude.
100%. And I feel like that's so important that you're willing to say that. And I know that that's tough and that's been moved past a lot, but I think that's very important to say because I'm sure that's happening thousands and thousands of times over in so many households all over the place, which is
sure.
And you have to have compassion for that statement that you hear it and you just cringe because you never want to hear somebody hear that statement, but you have to have compassion for where that statement comes from and the culture and what it is, right? Yeah. You say that prairie mindset and what that is it doesn't come from a bad place, and you need to hold that compassion, but we've learned more as a society and we need to move past that. We need to
and we've
make
realized
sure that sentence never gets said again, right?
Yeah. And we've realized that and now the parent that said that has been to therapy themselves.
Which is amazing.
I mean, I have said to my sister said to me before that it's really funny. Sometimes she feels like we drag them kicking and screaming into our liberal ideas.
Into the 21st century? Yeah, I feel like every kid feels that with their parents.
I feel like every kid feels that way with their parents, right? we as a society get more and more progressive, and
how it works. It's supposed to how it works. I feel like it's going a little backwards right now.
Right?
But,
Yeah. That's a whole nother story. But
yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
So I had this whole background context of, we don't go to therapy, it means admitting something's wrong. We don't go to therapy, it means admitting something's wrong.
Right. But that was the breaking point.
But that was the breaking point of like, what? No.
Yeah.
Okay. This has become way too dangerous.
Yeah.
I need help. And I remember getting out of the shower, getting dressed and talking to my boyfriend and being like, you need to make me go to the walk-in clinic. Like, I need an appointment. I need to start getting something done about
that.
This,
Was at the that was at the SU on campus.
Yeah, at the SU. Okay. Yeah, on campus. And so with his help, I got like counseling. I started getting meds, all of that sort of thing. So he's now my ex, but obviously, he, do you remember Shay Reardon?
Yeah, I remember because I remember specifically after this event, I never saw you guys apart for almost the rest of the year. Like, if you saw you and Lister, you guys were like a pair, right? Like, and I think that's now hearing this, that answers a lot of those questions. But yeah, no, I remember.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, I'm more than capable of living my own life independent from my partner, but I was so paralyzed by fear that people that don't know Shay, he's 6'5".
Yeah.
About 300 pounds because he used to play. Well, he's probably not anymore, but at the time he was about 300 pounds because he used to play football as an offensive and defensive lineman for the Bears, like the UofA Bears. So like, he was built like, it would be, he's a total teddy bear.
He was the guy that would help us walk when we had the big LDL cash drops at the start of the year. He would help us walk to the bank with us.
He'd always walk to the bank with us. Yeah. To make sure that nobody would hassle us for the money. Right. He's the sweetest guy in the entire world. But he just looks intimidating. So it's just that little bit of extra security. And obviously I was dating him at the time. So there was quite a bit of trust and confidence there.
Thank God you had that to not have to go through that fear and that without that safety net to help work you through it.
And very recently, actually, since like I've started coming into like my new self, I did send Shay a message because we broke up after I was done law school. And just thanking him for everything that he did for my mental health. And I don't think I would have gotten through law school without Shay. And like, even my partner now is like, if I met Shay, I would say thank you, like for what happened.
Just such a healthy outlook to have. And I think so many people can learn from that.
I mean, it didn't like end well. It obviously wasn't like a great breakup, but we were together for almost 6 years. I mean, it's hard to separate from that. But like, he just got married not that long ago. Yeah. And obviously I've creeped on Facebook, and his new partner, his wife, she seems awesome, and they seem so happy just from like the brief little things that I can see. So like, I'm so happy for him. I will never take that time for granted. I'm sorry if he feels like he's wasted it. I don't know how he feels about it, but like, for me, I'll always be very thankful to Shay for what he did for those times. But we just weren't the right match. And obviously he's found his right match now.
That's
and
life.
That's for him.
Life,
and
for sure.
Yeah. And I believe I found my right match as well. So obviously everything goes the way it's supposed to be. But
sure does.
But yeah, so Shay was really my rock during a lot of that. And then again in law school, when I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. So it was just really like, I really became dependent on people. And I guess that goes back to the favorite personism thing, is that that's really when I started to notice that like Shay became my favorite person at the time. Now my favorite person is my partner. And it can shift, but it's usually someone's partner. That's usually why you stick with them, but they're not why, you know, but
I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying. It sounds bad, but so Shay was really my rock throughout that break in situation and throughout everything else, obviously. Because that was only our second year of dating. And we obviously stayed together for almost 6 years. So that being said, I guess I really relied on him, because getting back to the point of the SU, or not the SU, the resident services thing, they were not there at all.
They weren't offering any services.
They were not offering any
help.
services,
Yeah.
no support.
We were the enemy at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I did have to go to the walk-in clinic and start finding counselors and things like that. And the U of A was not well set up for it.
They're terrible for a university with this many mental health issues and this many people for the first time on their own dealing with their mental health. And usually you're cocooned in this whole substructure of childhood that prevents you from feeling these feelings and having to, wade through these waters to not have a fully fleshed out mental. We have a building for every goddamn thing on campus. You don't have a whole mental health building of just fucking beanbag chairs and therapists and fucking.
I know. And I don't want to speak on how the U of A is now because I don't know. No, I don't know whether it's improved or not. I mean,
I've been trying to get some more current people on to say, but I think the tough part is I'm sure they're improving every year, but it's just we are so far behind and the wave is crashing and social media is making it so much worse. And every generation coming up, every new year of students that are coming in have this whole new batch of issues that you need to get way ahead of it. You need to invest. You don't just want to. It's like people trying to build roads to keep up in an up and coming city. You look at like Fort McMurray, right? They're always trying to build infrastructure to keep up with it.
Yeah, and then you look in Brazil when they made their capital. They literally built their capital to be their capital. They made 7-lane highways.
Yeah.
As they built their city.
Yeah. We need some 7-lane mental health highways.
We need some 7-lane mental health highways. Exactly. Yeah. So I guess that would be my goal. And UVic was so much better for it.
Really?
I had a much better time getting help. I wouldn't say that necessarily the faculty at UVic was much more helpful than the faculty at UVA. But the systems that UVic had were easier to access than the systems that UVA had.
And I think I don't think you can do anything about the people. I think the people goes back almost to what we're saying earlier with the generational thing where each generation is getting more, the taboos fall off and the understanding and the compassion and the understanding of these different disorders and what it is and that it's okay comes with it. But when you're talking people at a certain rate, you can try and change them. And I think conversations like this, where you really get the in-depth look at what it is what really changes people. But short of that, all these education and little things and break the stigma thing, it doesn't really sink in with those people. And you kind of, as sad as it is, it just takes time. And those people in those positions will eventually be replaced by people that are of our generation, have that so much more understanding. And you want to put all the structures around to help facilitate it. But at the end of the day, the people are going to change at their rate. And that's sad, but true. And it's nice to see that they're a little bit better, but it's hard to hold that as the standard when you're not talking the systems, you're talking the people.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and also before I keep going, I've already gone 15 minutes over our 12 o'clock. I just want to make sure your head's still feeling good. I don't want to cut you off. I'll go for hours 12
now. My time, so I still have.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Oh, well, if you're feeling good, I'll go forever. I just want to make sure I wasn't putting you through too much.
Yeah, no worries. Awesome. Yeah, no, the blinds really helps.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And I also have my computer screen dimmed as well. So
well, that's probably good for you too. So you don't have to look at this mug as much either.
No, you're full screen. You literally have all my focus. Nice. Like I turned off my notifications. I flipped my phone over.
Good thing I did
part of the reason I wanted to do this on Saturday is because since I've opened my law office, who the hell knows what's happening during the weekday?
Fair enough.
And even though I'm working later today, it's by choice. It's not like my clients don't expect me to work on the weekends.
So not to pull you away from the mental health journey there, because I think it is really important, but you just kind of stumbled upon a question that I'm really curious about. Having the first couple of weeks of running your own practice, I am curious because I am mirroring myself in this journey of like kind of something I want to go out and do on my own, but currently still within the structure of it. I find that every step forward I can take away from the structure of like chasing those dreams, just chasing my own dream, just the feeling around it. Even if I'm doing the same things, it feels so much better. How much do you feel that in the work now that you're doing it for yourself and for your own firm, even if it's the exact same, like reading the same case study, but for a firm versus for your own firm, how is that for you? Just maybe along the mental health route, like how does that feel? Does it feel any different?
Oh, it does totally. I mean, I was talking about this with my psychiatrist the other day. That's like, it was what you were saying earlier is I've internalized the control, like externally, the billing factors, the numbers, all those sorts of things. If I want to track 1,700 hours in a year of billables at my firm, That's going to be by choice because I have been busy enough. I'm enjoying the files, all
enjoying
of those
the clients, enjoying the work.
Yeah. If, for example, I only want to bill 1,000 hours that year, which would get me fired at any big law firm, I'm probably still going to make more money than I did at the big law firm. And I have a lot more flexibility. A lot of people will wait because, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience, like in terms of being a lawyer. I only was called to the bar in 2019. So a lot of people will go, oh, she's only she's only been called for 2 years. I'm a 3-year call now, 3 years. Like a lot of people will be like, ooh, she's not as experienced, but I have mentors. I have people I ask for questions. I'm involved in the system still. Like I have Facebook groups that I go to and all that kind of stuff. So,
and I think also not to interrupt again. Well, I'm interrupting again, but kind of earlier what I was saying of the different diversity of experiences too. I think also having a diversity, because I feel like, especially with lawyers, and we work with lawyers all the time with work. Like we have lawyers in AR, we have lawyers in, contract stuff. We have lawyers all over the place. We have different types of lawyers. And what I find is you get used to working with them, and because you're forced to, but I feel like for a huge subset of the population, they have never had any sort of interaction with the lawyer. Their understanding of lawyers comes from criminal minds, comes from, suits, comes from this type of thing. And it's so intimidating. And when your only options are these law offices where you're intaking, you're talking to this 20-year lawyers that are so far out of touch with who you are and what you're trying to talk to them, that
and they're not even the people who actually end up working on your cases.
100%.
Because they're like, they do the trials and all that kind of stuff, but the day-to-day work is done by people like me, which I like being able to now see going through all of the systems. Like before, I might just get a certain assignment and never find out about that file again. Or I might get the whole file, but come the time for like actual applications or something, I've put in 40 hours of work. I didn't get to argue the 20-minute application. Like that seems kind of unfair to me,
right?
To not get that experience when, how am I going to be able to be that 20-year-old vet if I don't have the experience now?
Right.
So I am obviously like very aware that I am not as experienced as other people. And so I am open about that.
Yeah.
So my firm, very much the value proposition is that I am not a typical law firm.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You can look at it as negative, but that can also be a positive. I think there's a lot of people that if they understood and knew your story and that, I feel like the intimidation factor, there would be people that maybe wouldn't even pursue it at all because just the intimidation of the fact that there's a lawyer involved will pull that option off the table for them if they know there's a middle ground, not a middle ground, but like a stepping stone, an approachable option.
Lawyer.
Yeah, that is the word.
And that's really where I try to be. Is I try to be as approachable and transparent as possible. Is like that's why I have hardship rates. That's why I have student rates. That's why I do have a regular rate for people like who can afford it or whatever. Like, so it's one of those things that's like I am really more wanting to get clients that I feel aligned with.
Yes.
Because going back to your question about how does that affect my mental health? Well, I was doing a contract for another firm and I was getting assigned files and like parts of files. And I just found the way that they were being assigned and the files that they were on. Sometimes I was having a little bit harder time motivating myself to do the work. I was still doing it, still getting it done by the timeline, all those sorts of things. But just at the end of the day, I was so burnt out and being like, I don't feel fulfilled by this. And since the 19th, I have only had one morning where I had to use my Pomodoro timer technique to start making myself do work. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Pomodoro.
No, I know. I was actually going to ask that. Oh my
God. This will change your motivation life. All right, everybody should use it.
Hit me.
So it's called the Pomodoro timer. It's based off of some guy had a little tomato kitchen timer, like one of those twist ones. And he just set it for 25 minutes to focus and just worked for 25 minutes until the timer went off. And he was like, okay, cool. I made myself work for 25 minutes. And then there's a whole bunch of studies that went into this. It evolved, blah, blah, blah. Pomodoro is from tomato. So like I have an app on my computer that's like on the top of the bar that I can just press the button. So there's like a whole bunch of science that's gone into it, that our most effective brain power is for like 25 minutes. That is like your ultimate, like after 25 minutes, you should probably try to take a break and give yourself a rest.
Right.
With Pomodoro technique, they do cycles of 4. So you do 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And when you complete that, you get a 15-minute break. And then, so obviously you can do it like, and like apps will have different amounts, because some people might need a 10-minute break, or they might want to only work for 20 minutes, or they might want to work for an hour. Who knows, right?
And some people break it up, so maybe they have a 35-minute or a 40-minute work period, right? Like you look at these deep work scientists that need to take a big problem and sit with it. Like Lex Friedman, he talks about 4-hour solid work where he just sits down with no distraction for 4 hours and locks in, right? Like, and it's about what you build yourself up to. It's just as much as anything else, it's a skill that you build up, but it's about starting and keeping it consistent. Your body will start to recognize this. And now they know, oh, this is my 25-minute or whatever minute, this is work time. And you associate a framework of work time that snaps you into it. It snaps you into the right brain waves to be working.
Yeah. And so I find that like, if I have the Pomodoro timer going, I'm like, okay, it's only 25 minutes. Even if I only do one, that's 25 minutes more of work than I would have done if I just sat here and looked at Facebook, 100%. Right? So yeah, it turns off all my notifications. I literally just zone in, and then the timer goes off. And more often than not, I keep going.
Yeah, that's what they always talk about. Yeah.
So I mean,
I just didn't recognize the name. Now that you mentioned it, I definitely know this tech, and I'm totally behind it. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great.
So there are some times where, like, if I'm doing like a marathon of something, like I know I have 4 hours of work, I will be very strict about those 5-minute breaks because of my mental health, because of my tailbone, all of those sorts of things. Like having my own firm really lets me work at my own comfortable pace. So that, like, for example, if my back is quite sore, I'm going to take my laptop and go work in a different chair. Like I couldn't do that in an office, right?
Couldn't go to the couch.
So, I mean, I have my own little office in here. It used to be the storage / cats room. You can see there's some stuff in here, and it's now referred to as the cat's office because I share it with the cats. They have their
sharing
food and stuff, and So, but it's nice to have my own little separate area and stuff now that I have my own firm. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for now is. I lost my train of thought.
Reinvigorating.
That's a good way of saying it. Is it's so much more reinvigorating, and like the work that I'm doing. So I only had one time that I've needed to use my Pomodoro far in like almost a month.
That's
which
awesome.
Is crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, that being said, probably my boyfriend would have liked me to use it more often to take more breaks. Because of my brain.
Been working pretty hard and
I mean, there's been a lot going on since
I bet
that accident and setting up my firm. Next week is my first week where I actually am looking at my week and I'm like, it's not packed. Like, I mean, I've scheduled breaks into there. Like I literally block off breaks in my calendar to be like mental break time. But the work that I'm doing is so much more fulfilling. Even like the contract revision, like that's somebody would be like, oh, contracts are so boring. Like, wouldn't you rather be in court arguing, like dealing with people? But no, because the contracts that I'm reviewing, the person that found me to review those contracts wouldn't have fit with a normal firm anyways. Right? Like they wanted something that's more personal, somebody that's willing to sit down and talk to them and realize what their business background is, like why they're trying to do things the way they're doing, and then give them that legal advice. Obviously, my background in business law for my degree at UofA, my Bachelor of Commerce, is quite helpful for like, I work with like some of my clients that I'm starting with are entrepreneurs. And so, I mean, obviously it's helping me as an entrepreneur as well with my own firm. But it's something that's nice. They know that they can come to me and be like, oh, I need somebody to incorporate. Okay, well, I don't do incorporations, but I know the right person because I incorporated. So I'm going to give you my personal person. And I do that a lot with referrals. Is like, I have generated such a good referral network, and I would rather the person go to the right person than and get the right help than come to me and me not do
Yeah.
So I'm very honest.
And that builds your brand really well too. When you don't just take it on or do a half-assed job of something that somebody else can do better. Now people have good experience with you. When they go to you, they know they're either going to get help or get put onto the right help. And that is just consistent, good reviews and good people coming back. And that's what grows a brand identity, is that exact thing.
Yeah. And for me, like literally all of my clients so far have come from one Facebook post in the Vancouver Women in Business group.
Wow.
Yeah, either I also made the same post on my personal wall. So like I have a couple of clients that like know me personally, but anybody that I don't know came from that post.
Yeah.
And literally it was just the post that I made introducing like the lawyer for the firm and like telling my story and stuff like that. But I didn't post it as a self-promotion thing. I posted it into the group because for the last like year, I've been in this group asking people questions, planning my firm, doing all of these sorts of things, and seeing all these women entrepreneurs succeed and giving me the like confidence to go, okay, I have a network here that like, if I need help with bookkeeping, I can post in this group and somebody will be able to help me.
Yeah.
Like I have the network to support me. And so I posted and said, thank you guys for everything for the past year. I finally launched today. And I'm really excited. Yeah. So I wanted to share my very first post with you guys to say thank you for getting me going. Well, there's like 15,000 people in that community. And I think I have over 1,000 likes and comments on that post.
That's awesome.
In that community.
Yeah.
It is one of the like highest engaged posts in that community in the last couple of months.
That's great. And that's brought some people
some people.
Oh, that's awesome.
I didn't even mean for it to be an advertising thing. It was literally just me being my authentic self.
That's great.
And like the post, if you look it up, it's on like my Instagram as well. I have Megan Chambers Law and Ms. Legally BPD. Those are my two handles.
Yeah.
So I'm very open about my BPD, as you can tell. I try to like make sure that I'm trying to represent it well. Yeah, upfront about it.
That's awesome.
And so that post is on there, and it literally explains like this was my journey. I broke my tailbone. Like I'm getting back into law. Like these are the people I want to serve. And I think that just being honest about that, like my practice areas are wills and estates, family, Aboriginal and Indigenous law, and then like obviously I do all sorts of litigation, so like contract review, all like I'm qualified to do everything a lawyer is qualified to do, but that's where I focus.
And if somebody isn't sure if what they need falls in any of those domains, they can still reach out to you.
They just still reach out to me.
Yeah, because you have a great referral network. So even if it is kind of outside of that, you can probably help them out even still.
Yeah. Like I do free 30-minute consultations before I even like ask the client if they want to retain me.
That's beautiful.
Like I literally go through the whole process. I let them know like this is kind of what I'd estimate. This is what like billing I do. This is my experience. This is how like I operate. Like it's really a chance for them to feel me out and see if they actually want to work with me.
If it's a good fit.
And because to me, it is all about good fit. I don't want somebody who picks me just because I'm the cheapest lawyer they can find. And if that is what comes across, I'm not going to let them retain me. Because I'm not here to be the discount option because I'm like in quotes, because I am inexperienced. I'm here to be a cheaper, more affordable version for people who need access to justice. So a lot of my clients are, for example, like I have a hardship rate for anybody who's on any sort of government assistance. I'm like, but obviously doesn't qualify for legal aid, because if they qualified for legal aid, they would be using it. But that being said, like that rate, a lot of people still have problems paying. But at least it helps somebody get a little bit better access to justice. So like I do have a portion of my practice, obviously, that is like the litigation side that pays more, and like the files, like I have some companies that I work with and stuff like that, right? So it pays the bills, keeps the lights on, and obviously with my hardship rates, I still am making enough to not go into like debt for
break even on it. But
like, I want to make sure that somebody can still afford the law, right?
Right.
And so I think being really honest about the fact that those are the people that I'm trying to serve. I'm trying to serve single mothers. I'm trying to serve the LGBTQ community. I'm trying to serve people with disabilities. I'm trying to serve people, anything that makes it harder to access the justice system, something where you are a minority in the view of the law. Those are the clients that I'm seeking out. Those are the clients that I find the most value from. And I don't need, like, I am never going to work again for well, I maybe should never say never, but like, I'm not going to take a contract where that client wants all of my time for 2 years to fight about an oil rig.
Right.
No, I'm not going to do it. If, for example, somebody wants all of my time or like most of my time to run a family law case where like there's child protection issues or something like that, yeah, I'm going to take it because I want to make sure that child is looked after.
And it lines up with your why.
And it lines up with my why is because money is whatever at this point in time. I mean, like, obviously I have debt from law school and like student loans and stuff like that. I want to pay that off eventually.
For sure.
But I gave up a six-figure salary going back to big law. I could have probably found a law firm eventually that would have worked for me. I could have bullied it through, all of that sort of stuff. Like, if I became a partner, it'd be a 7-figure salary kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of money in big law. But you almost have to give up a part of your soul to do it.
100%.
Sometimes.
For sure. And
People,
I think that's in a lot of domains.
Yeah. Some people, it's exactly what they want. It's exactly what they love. But I think it's becoming more and more the norm for people to express in law that it's not quite what they wanted to do. There's becoming more, like I said, that survey on mental health, they're trying to push the firms through regulation by the law societies to really like focus on mental health, because it really is a top-down approach from the top of the firm. Because like coming in as an associate and saying, yeah, I want you guys to start up a counseling program or something like that. Like, the managing partner is going to be like, no, why? Exactly. That costs me money.
Yeah, it costs me money.
And now need for it. And we never had that when I was growing up, and I was just fine.
And if the firms down the street don't do the same thing because of the competitive landscape, you know, if you start putting all these programs in, you might have a balance where that brings in better lawyers and better staff that are going to see the returns. But that's a risky investment for them. You know, if they aren't educated in the right way of what it's going to get them. Of now, I go, you know, pay $50,000 to put a wing into my law firm that has a mental health aspect to it, and the guys down the street, now our overhead's higher and they can make a little bit more money and they eat our lunch, right? They can offer a cheaper rate, and right, like it's always tough, and you have to keep that in mind.
You kind of have to make the business sense behind it.
Exactly.
Make sense.
And I feel like that is something that it's unfortunate, but I think also I don't think it is unfortunate, but I try not to think of it as unfortunate because it's just reality.
It is reality.
I feel like so much of the time when we have these discussions, we forget about reality, and that reality plays a really big point of this.
Oh, for sure.
That doesn't mean, okay, there's no hope to it. It's no, that sucks. But yeah, okay, now we have to make business sense. So if we want to make this change, we need to make it make business sense. Just like Elon Musk wanted everybody to drive electric cars, but he realized people don't want electric cars. They want ease of availability. They want all this stuff. If I want to make a change that is good, and yeah, life's tough, I need to make the best car just happen to be electric. And that's going to bring people on, right? It has to make business sense. And then the positive change will come with it. And I feel like that is the aspect that every social justice warrior, every person needs to, they need to root themselves deeply in reality so that the solutions that are coming up aren't in this fantasy utopia that doesn't make any sense and now turns off the people that are very grounded either by choice or by station in life and what they've been through. They are so grounded in that reality and can see through that, but you'll find so much more success. I feel like that is just my biggest point, is the coupling of these amazing goals, these things that need to happen. I agree with you. I'm totally on board, but I just see so much harm come in if you don't take a good swing at it and ground it in reality and make it work with all these business things. You're almost doing more damage than you are doing good, because people get turned off of these pie in the sky ideas as not feasible because they weren't fully fleshed out within the
Oh, for
framework
sure.
that they need to operate, right? Yeah,
Yeah. And
that's always my thing.
I mean, it's always scary to think of major overhaul change too, right? Like nobody really likes large scale change,
Right.
and law is not a place where they like large scale change. The law, it moves, but very slowly. It's a glacial pace, and it's that way for a reason.
But to me, I see, sorry, I don't interrupt. I think this is important. I see those as the most important areas, or the areas that are most ripe for change, because those ones that are glacial and they don't want to change, that is where it's ripe to eat their lunch. So now, I mean, I just made that argument that if you want to bring in these new age aspects that are going to really help your people, you have to see the return for it. I think because they're so slow to move and everyone's so scared to do it, that if a firm really put an emphasis on it, instead of treating it as a cost that they have to recoup, if you do that as a selling point, kind of similar to what you're doing of, selling yourself as, a little bit of a different option that brings in a little bit more thing that people are after, right? I bet you there is a thirst for this firm to come in that is, because there's such an idea of, work yourself to death and grind to be a partner in law, that if you had one that kind of changed the gate and changed their dynamic and came with a whole new mindset that was based around that, where that was their whole thing, I think there's a lot of success there. And I think that's where you see a lot of these things. And when you're talking about how you want to get to know your clients and stuff and find the right fit, it seems so similar to therapy to me, and how people always talk about, getting a therapist, but what people don't
half
understand,
of law is therapy. We'll be honest.
that is very fair. That is
especially,
very fair.
Okay. So in family law, it goes up to about 75% of your job is counseling.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you think it's not, no, therapy, it's like you're paying for a therapist at the same time with the legal advice. So yeah, fit is so important, because I think where you're going to say is that if you don't have the right fit of therapist, it's going to do more harm than good.
Right.
Like you need to have the right personality for them. You need to have the right technique. Like all of the things need to match.
Right.
So that you actually get the benefit. Right.
Yeah. And I think there's some parallels where I think with both law and therapy, people think I just need to call they'll give me one and it'll work. That doesn't work in law. It doesn't work in therapy. If you go in and try and take the first therapist, it probably won't work. You probably need to try out 2 or 3 or 4. And because of that,
do your research beforehand,
exactly,
get referrals
and understand this and go into it knowing that I'm going to have to try to find this person. Right. And once you know that, now you're looking at it through that lens. Is this therapist trying to connect with me and see if this is the right fit, or are they just trying to make money and just trying to keep me in because they want to keep me on as a client? Same with a lawyer, right? If that lawyer is coming in judging you, are you going to be the right fit, or should I recommend you off to somebody else? It's such a different experience, and speaks so much to who they are as a lawyer or as a therapist, right? Instead of just trying to lock you in, because you all know that. I mean, just by happenstance, I've interviewed a student that's just going into law school. It's been her dream. She's probably going to come out soon, and been on the phone with 3 different lawyers in 3 different areas of my life this week. And you can see the difference of how wildly, vastly different they all are. And I think that is so important to zone in on that and recognize and bring yourself forward as somebody that is trying to work with them and find that fit and see if it works out, and not just trying to whatever doesn't, I don't even need to hear the case. I'll take it on. I just want your money kind of thing. I think that
I literally told a client today, I was like, or not today, this week, I was like, seriously, why can we not just do it this way? And they're like, oh, well, I don't really want it. I'm like, okay, no, seriously, let's look at it this way. This is my recommendation. I'm going to tell you to do this. We could do it this way, but this way it will cost you about 10 grand.
Yeah.
This way will cost you about $500 and get you the same result.
Yeah.
Like, I will make a ton of money if you want me to go this way.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, no, seriously, take this way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy for the business. Cool. But it doesn't serve me, doesn't serve them for me to do all of this extra stuff when we can just get it this way.
And that honesty goes a long way and builds upon a relationship in the future.
But and that's why I have like those rates I've talked about before, is that I'm not here to just do it because I'm qualified as a lawyer and I can take everybody on and save the world, all that kind of thing, or like make money or whatever.
Yeah.
I want clients that I feel like I can work with, that I feel like I'm actually doing a service for. If it's a client that honestly I think would be suited better to a big law firm, like because of the resources they need, or they just don't want the personal like attachment. Like I'll refer them out. I have no problem doing that. And I think just always being upfront and honest about who I am and those sorts of things. Like, for example, like when I know I'm a junior call, so instead of billing at like $500 an hour that like a senior call would, I bill quite a bit less than that. Like I also will not straight bill time. A lot of lawyers will bill based on 0.1 of an hour, right? So every 6 minutes, you start a new 6 minutes, right? So if you did 6 minutes and 1 second, you pay for 12 minutes. Like that's just the way it works. But for me, I honestly like hate living and dying by my timer. Obviously I time like for important things, but like if you send me like an email that only takes me 2 seconds to read and reply to, I don't want to start my timer for that. It takes me longer to start my timer than it actually did to write the email. And I also don't charge in 6 minute increments. I charge in 0.01 rounded to the nearest thing. So like for me, it's all of those like practicalities of like, you don't want to pay for time you're not using.
And you don't want to and you don't want to feel like you're being hosed, because as the customer that works with lots of lawyers, you know, when they are got that clock on for every little thing and it feels like you're just getting run through the ringer, that is a very different customer experience, right? It's funny to call with law customer, but
well, it is. It's customer service. 100%.
100% it is. And to be on the other side of that, you get to see the effect and the feeling you get, and what a nice fresh, oh, that's a tough one for me, breath of fresh air that is to see somebody doing it differently and not falling into that old trap. That, and again, there's no negativity with the people that do it. That is just the way it's been done. And it just leaves an opportunity for somebody to come in and change the game and do it a different way.
And I mean, it works for like, I'd say like 75 to 90% of the cases. Big law firms can totally work. Like the cases that are in court right now. We obviously have a severe access to justice issue. That has been way covered. There's not enough judicial appointments. There's not enough resources in the courts. There's not enough lawyers. There's not enough affordable lawyers. There's not enough legal knowledge. All of my stuff is trying to really go towards that. Whereas like with my website that I'm building right now, I'm going to have a blog on it to like get information out. Like it's not legal advice, but like just like the basic stuff kind
general
of thing.
Understanding kind of thing.
My launch event that I'm working on planning right now is, do I even need to estate plan? I'm under 40. And so I'm working with a financial advisor and a mortgage consultant and myself, obviously, to essentially talk about finances, estates, healthcare directives, all of those sorts of things for people under 40. Because a lot of people don't start thinking about wills or retirement or those sorts of things till they start to buy a house, get kids, those sorts of things. Like I talked to somebody this week who has never had a will, but her kids are 6 and 4. Well, what happens to those kids if there's no will? Like a lot of people aren't even thinking about it because they're so intimidated by these lawyers. And so literally I just want to be like, yo, I'm 28. I can, like, I know I look so embarrassing. I'm not a cool kid. That
was one of the coolest things I've ever seen, Megan. That you threw out, top level, killing it. Killing the
excellent. Game. Thanks. I used to listen to Eminem when I was a kid. I still do now. There you go. But yeah. Anyways. So yeah, I like to be able to come up and go, no, this is actually what the law process looks like. This is where I'm going to be able to hold your hand. This is where I can guide you. It's not as scary as it seems. I promise. I do this every day. So I know the system, and you just have to like,
I'll walk you through.
Give in to me a little bit. Like I'll let you know what you need to do. I'm here to make this as less stressful as possible. Like if the only stress is budget, then we'll make sure the budget works to make sure that you still get your access to justice. Right. Like there are budget solutions to getting the right.
You just got to start that conversation, and then
you just have to start that conversation. So like, I'm very open with my clients about like, okay, I think this will take this many hours and I'm going to get authorization if I go over it. Like, I do have like, some contracts like retainers where I cap them. So instead of doing a flat fee for something, I would say, okay, it's capped at this and it's an hourly rate up to that. So
Right.
if I think it might take me 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It will maximum take me 3 hours. That's the max you're going to get billed for.
But if I do it in an hour and a half.
Yeah. If it takes me 8, you only have to pay for that because that's the knowledge gap I need to cover myself.
Right.
Right. That's something that like, maybe I just didn't know that section of that act and I need to familiarize myself with it. Well, that's going to help me in other files too. So I'm not, that's like a business expense in my mind. But when I'm
a good
working
way to look
on,
at it.
Yeah. But so then also with that cap, yeah, like say in your example, I only worked an hour and a half. They don't have to pay that full amount because I did it faster than I thought. I don't want them to pay
There's
me.
a lot of law firms that
would
take that full 3 hours guaranteed.
I know.
Yeah.
So there are like a couple of things I do flat fee, like wills and estate, like wills, like simple wills and mirrored wills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Things that are very like template based that I know it's going to be a certain amount of time and cost or whatever. Like I've locked it in. Obviously it's with certain parameters. Like if somebody has like 6 companies in an offshore account or something, that's not a simple will. So I can't cap it.
For sure. But, yeah, it makes sense.
But like, no, I really like to be transparent. Like something that I really found frustrating, because like I actually have a lawyer for a personal injury case with my broken tailbone right now. And one of the things I found frustrating when trying to find lawyers myself is like, obviously I was already in the system. So I knew of some people and I still struggled to find what their approach was, what their rates were, like all of those sorts of things. And I don't want law to be scary.
Yeah, transparency in all areas. I think just since the advent of the internet, any industry that leans away from transparency instead of into it is going to have a tough wake-up call. And I feel like all the ones that are just kicking and screaming not to, university, you're seeing they don't want to open up about the issues they have. They want to keep it all opaque and behind closed doors, and you see what's happening. News media, you're seeing the same thing. It's kind of, I think transparency is the only way to go. And I think you're really on the right path. Dialing into and leaning into those aspects that people are going to want, and what the next generation of people that are needing to book a lawyer, like that is. Yeah.
Like I have a 19-year-old client.
Yeah.
Like she still needs law. Like,
yeah. More so, the younger you are, the more you need somebody that has
because like if you're 50 and you have the same issue, you might have been able to work through it yourself.
Yeah.
But
you just have the life experience to
who knows? But that's not to say that it's any less valid for her to need a lawyer. For sure. Because maybe she was 50 and needed a lawyer for the exact same thing. Who knows, right? Like to me, it's really trying to make sure that people who just don't have any experience with it, like before I went into law school, I didn't know any lawyers until except for the lawyers that worked at the oil and gas firm. I started to get to know lawyers but like a lot of my classmates had been around law their entire lives. Like they had parents who were lawyers, like brothers and sisters who were lawyers, and they had that exposure. And so lawyers weren't so intimidating to them.
Right.
For me, even now, I am a lawyer. I am more than qualified to be a lawyer. I get good reviews on my work, like from mentors and stuff like that. I'm still terrified when I go into a call with somebody who is
senior
like
lawyers that have been doing it for a long
call
time.
Or a QC, which is like Queen's Counsel, which is like a really high, prestigious award. Only 8% of the lawyers in BC at any one point in time can be a Queen's Counsel. Whoa. So like, that's so intimidating. But then I also know Queen's Counsel who are like the easiest people to talk to in the entire world. And probably most of them are. But just because I never had that personal experience, I like still get kind of intimidated by lawyers, even though I am one and I worked in a law office. Right. But they don't need to be. And so I kind of like to hold myself out as, like you said earlier, a stepping stone into law. Like you want to dabble your toes a little bit to figure out if you have legal rights, if to see if like what it's going to look like, like, should you be as scared as you are? Like, should you not be scared? Like those sorts of things. And for me, it's really a lot about just making sure people feel comfortable. Like it's a stressful enough situation when you have to hire a lawyer.
Right.
I don't need to be more stressed.
For sure.
The point of my job is to make your stress go down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then if there's somebody that has listened to this and hears, and maybe that either they have something big that comes up, maybe in the next couple of weeks, they have something big that comes up, or maybe it's just something that has been bouncing around in their mind, but they don't know if they have rights on it, or they don't know if there's something there, and they want to contact you. What's the best way to get in contact with you and start that conversation, Megan?
Yeah, for sure. So I will give the caveat that I'm only licensed in BC, and I know you're in Alberta. So obviously there's a mobility agreement, so I can make comments on other things, but like, obviously I don't give legal advice unless I'm retained, blah, 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 all that kind of jazz.
Fair enough.
But no, for sure. I'm super open with people reaching me. It's Megan Chambers Law. Megan is Megan. Chambers is in Chambers of the Secrets from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So I have a
Good
very
reference.
easy name to find. But yeah, I have social media. I'm getting my website up. And probably the best way to contact me right now is literally Megan at meganchamberslaw.ca.
Megan at meganchamberslaw.ca. Gotcha.
Yeah, or on social media at like Ms. Legally BPD or whatever. I'm like like a lot of lawyers, their personal accounts aren't visible. That's even something that I have is like my personal account is totally visible. You get to see my life. I haven't deleted anything off of my Instagram because that is who I am.
Yeah.
Like obviously I have been in the like legal guidance for a while. So I know not to post things that are like inflammatory and stuff like that. Obviously.
Some of the old Lister page, the Lister photos at Duke's at 3 a.m.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's pictures of me drinking on there and stuff, but it's who I am. And of course. I do want to be able to be an advocate for mental health. So for sure. I keep myself very open. Like I have link from my web, like my Megan Chambers Law social media to my personal Instagram so that people can see who I am, because I don't want to be some stuffy lawyer on the 20th floor that you only see on their terms, build every 6 minutes, like ivory tower kind of thing. No, like I will come meet you in a coffee shop. We can sign some papers. We can chat. Like
beautiful.
I just did my like photos for like my firm branding and stuff like that. And it was the first time I'd put on a blazer. And like I didn't have like a really, like I had like a cheaper, like more designer blazer on. But it was the first time I'd worn a blazer in almost 6 months.
Wow.
Because
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's actually, something to be proud of. Yeah.
Yeah. Like in undergrad, when I was in business, I never wore sweatpants to class a single day. Because I remember the first day in business school, the dean going, you never know who you're going to meet, and you always want to make a good first impression.
I did not listen to that at all.
I did. But so I never, except for when I had my shoulder surgery and like couldn't actually do up jeans myself. Right. I never wore anything but jeans or like dresses or nice things to class. Like I didn't put a lot of makeup, but like I made sure I was presentable for class kind of thing. Whereas now, like I come in and to be honest, I don't change out of pajamas until like usually noon most days.
I'm so jealous.
Why do I need to? I can work in my pajamas. Quite often I'm in like sweatpants. Right now I'm wearing nice pants because I felt like putting them on. They match my shirt.
There you go.
But like I'm in sweatpants, I'm in shorts. Like if I did like an interview on TV, I'd be one of those people who accidentally stands up and you see I'm wearing like drastically different on the bottom than on the top. But yeah, I like, that's who I am. I work out of my house. Sometimes there's going to be noise. Sometimes there's going to be people walking in the background. Like I told you, it's the cat's office. It's both of our offices. There's a litter box in here that like, obviously I keep quite clean, and there's air freshener, so it doesn't bother me or anything like that. But like, they need to get in sometimes. So they'll like wait at the door for somebody to notice them or for me to let them in or whatever. And sometimes that's just a fact of the matter. Like
for sure.
We have 2 cats that are ours. So there's actually quite a few cats in our house because there's a couple families that live in the same house. And they all have their own cats. So we have our 2 cats, and they're brother and sister, Cheech and Chong. Chong, the girl, is quite attached to me. So if she's out and about in the house, and the door to the office is closed, sometimes my clients can hear,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, shut up.
Breaking your heart.
Yeah, I'm like, she just wants to be near me.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's very hard to do work when there's like a cat butt going across the computer. So sometimes I let her in, sometimes I don't.
Yeah. You have to see how, maybe if it's on the first half hour intro call, you leave her out. And then once you get to know the client, they can come meet the kids.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very honest about that. If like I'm on a Zoom call and all of a sudden I can hear Chong going nuts, I'm like, sorry, 1 second. I need to just
gonna grab my cat.
Let my cat know that I'm not abandoning her. Yeah. It's really funny too, since I started working in the office more with the door closed and stuff like that, because I have more calls and they're confidential and all that kind of stuff. So obviously I have to keep them closed. So I'll come back out and they'll have been out and around in the house and all that kind of stuff. As soon as I come out, wherever I go for the next 5 minutes, they follow me. Yeah. Just to be like, Mom,
we're still here. We're still here. Yeah.
Okay. You're still around. Okay. And then they like kind of go off, do their own thing. And then they realize I'm back in the office and like lay outside the office door until I come back out.
Cry a little bit.
Yeah. It's like, it's kind of funny. They're not like super old. They turned 1 on April 20th. Which is also part of the reason why their name is Cheech and Chong. They were born on 420. So like, of course. So, and like, see, that's another thing. Like a lot of lawyers won't admit that they're 420 friendly.
Yeah.
I live in BC.
I was going to say, if you're in Vancouver, that's a pretty key aspect of it. Yeah.
I have 2 cats named Cheech and Chong.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like broadcast it everywhere, but like obviously like I worked in the cannabis group at my old law firm doing like working with cannabis companies and stuff like that. It's something that I'm interested in. Yeah. It's legal. Like
that gives me about a million more questions that I want to ask now too. And I didn't even get to curling. I had all these curling questions. I had forensics questions. I had so much.
God. I'm so sorry.
I think that just means you're gonna have to come on again. I think next time we'll have to do it in person because these Zoom ones are fun, but also it's a whole nother deal to get in front of each other and have this conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm really curious to see where your firm goes and where you take it. I really love the ideas behind it and the transparency and a lot of the goals and the why. I think that is most important. I think the how and the what, all that stuff is important, but I think the why is paramount to all of that. And it sounds like you got a great one, and that makes me really excited to see.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's been the biggest thing is determining my why, and everything kind of spins from that now. And there's been, like, we didn't have time to get into it, but there's been a whole bunch of stuff in my law journey and stuff, and it's one of those things that's like I wouldn't necessarily take any of it back. Right. There's been shitty stuff, but everything has led to this door.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
This has been a pretty fucking amazing door so far. Yeah. It's not even a month in, and I am loving waking up every morning, going to work. I love the clients I have. I feel like I'm doing something that matters. Like, I am actually like struggling sometimes to stop myself from working, to like take breaks. Because my why is so strong and I'm doing something that actually meets my why. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's really good. But yeah, thank you for having me and letting
Thanks for coming on. It's lots of fun.
Spout some vitriol about mental health and law. But yeah, I'm great. Always very open and willing to talk to anybody. I quite often do ask me anythings on my Instagram page.
Oh, cool.
Usually about borderline personality disorder, sometimes about law stuff. But so I'm very open. And like you said earlier, people there's ways to contact me.
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll put it in your post of how to contact me.
It'll be in the description. It'll be in everything. And we'll definitely have you on again soon. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You as well.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Episode 81 in the books. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. If you know any lawyer friends that might appreciate the topics of the conversations, maybe somebody that has been affected by bipolar disorder, anything like that, just pass it on. Pass the love, share the love. That's what helps this thing grow. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I always say, if you could help me out by following all the Instagram pages, social media pages, giving it a share, that really helps. Any guest ideas, send them my way. Always looking for new people to have on the pod. Any topic ideas, let me know. Anything you like or dislike, I'm always looking for more feedback to make this better for you guys. So yeah, if you could do that for me, I'd really appreciate it. And other than that, I will see you guys next week. Bye.